And we're here. What up, Betty?
What up, Betty? We are here, and we are a bit late.
A little bit.
That's because I was running my mouth about
Hey, listen,
crazy
things happen.
shit.
Things happen. Things happen. We are creatives. That's
true,
how
bro.
That's how that works.
It actually sucks.
Sean P.
It actually sucks.
It is
though.
indeed part 3 of the Divine Trilogy, Sean. But it's different. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be different.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little different.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my best to be the elder states. Okay, you say that shit with a goddamn straight face, bro. Like it's really hard to do. Really hard to do.
It is what it is.
I mean, look, bro. Listen, it is a fact that one of the banes of my existence is that I have always had arrested development from the time I was a kid, teenager, young adult, even now.
Right.
It is what it is. I didn't even know what it was until I got old enough to, oh, that's what that was. Meaning I don't always react like my age tells me, right? What society says my age should make me react. Yo, you should be past.
But
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, slow your roll.
But it happens where, there'll be these sparks of maturation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sparks of it, right? And that's helpful because I had to raise kids out here. You know what I'm saying? But
then somebody farts. See? Thank you for proving my point.
And I think, what didn't help is I eventually became a rapper. That didn't help.
Sure.
Because some of the most immature shit ever happens in hip hop, right? Like to be able to like sometimes write to certain themes, you have to be able to pull from the old you.
Yeah.
Right. And the only way you do that efficiently is if it's always under the surface. Like it's if you drive it down too deep, because I am a mature 56-year-old man, and as that I will not engage. And if you push that down, it's gonna be hard to pull it up when you need it in the rap. Especially if you got diss a motherfucker, because sometimes this motherfucker is some of the most immature shit. You pull at threads. So like immature shit. That's what it is, right?
Shit happens.
Now, the downside to all of that is that it is a fucking struggle to not accelerate a problem
right.
based off of a ego thing. And part of my ego extends to my circle.
Yeah.
Right? Wait a minute, hold up. That's my nigga.
Right.
You can't do that. That's my sister. You can't do that. But that's my man's mom's. You can't do that. That's part of my ego, right? So when I see somebody that's in my circle being attacked, or somebody is doing something that makes their life miserable, I get mad.
Yeah.
I get mad because I feel like you're doing that to me. You
Thanks.
do. That's my right. So, in the case of Chrissy, I haven't known Chrissy anywhere near as long as everybody else in the circle, but I've known her a couple of years now. It's been a couple of years, right?
And for everybody listening, that precedes her and I being in a relationship.
Yes.
She went out on shoots with us and all types of stuff. So yeah,
been in there while we did podcasts. We was up. Remember we went out to what mall was that we went out that time? She was out there then.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was with me. It was
Yeah.
it was but now it's worse because that's his soon-to-be wife.
Yep.
So you can't do that to her. You can't talk that way to her. You can't call her a liar. If she said it happened, it happened. And everything I know from her, knowing her these years now, she's not going to make shit up, and she's not prone to falsehoods.
Yeah, we also happen to have, proof.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing. But I'm talking strictly on a primal level.
Facts.
That ain't what I know her for.
Right.
Then when you add the fact that we got receipts, we got receipts.
So the receipts have been seen.
So this is why I said it's always a struggle for me, because I have arrested development, to not exacerbate a problem if I think it's beef. Yeah. Oh, you beefing?
Right.
Who you beefing with? As particularly when it comes to people who ain't out there trying to hurt nobody. They're only trying to help people and shit. Right? I've had friends. I have not always been the best motherfucker, right? But I had friends in my circles that were. Like, all intent and purposes, if you check the boxes, they wasn't doing the dumbass shit that the rest of us was out there doing. So no one should be allowed to fuck with them. Nah, they mind their business. They are, for all intent and purposes, civilians.
Yeah.
And we hang around them just because they're good people, not because we know they're gonna be good in the fight, not because we know they're gonna pull a yap out. You know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with that with them. Right. We don't expect that from them. They don't portray themselves to be that sort. So they don't bother nobody. They out here trying to have a good time. They are, for all intent and purposes, slices of our innocence that we toss the fuck away to do the other shit because of ego and all of that. So you can't do shit to them.
Yeah.
But there were conversations, and I'm not gonna lie, some of the conversations, people who interjected.
Wait. Before you do that, let me catch the people up.
Okay.
And all then after we get through all that, we can
bet.
All right. So so we have a divine update, of course. Now we got to make sure we get right into it so that the owner's sister can get the full point without having to waste three hours of her life.
Yes.
But we'll get to that a little bit later. Some of you have seen some of it. Big ups to everyone who helped spread awareness of what's been going on, and to those who had my back as the sly attacks and insults were sent my way. I was originally going to make
you're welcome
more. I was originally going to make more posts, each addressing a different part of the thread that I'm going to be referring to today, but for several reasons, that's not going to happen. It's easier to do the whole thing on here, first of all. Second of all, my fiance happens to be more charitable than I am.
Very much so.
So, that's a thing.
Which is the other reason why,
the third reason is, honestly, there's some things, some official things that behind the scenes are starting to happen. And I don't want to be a distraction
Facts.
to any of those things.
Facts.
So this will likely be our last time addressing this publicly. All right. So I made another post on Facebook. People shared it just the same way they shared the first one. This time it went a little different. So one of the people who shared it also happened to tag the mayor and several local news pages. Full transparency, the original plan absolutely involved getting the news involved as well. But this person was not a part of any of that. They just happened to be a friend of Dion's. who saw what was happening, and they were appalled. So another type of the person that we're talking about, they saw something that was happening to somebody they were connected to, and they were like, nah.
You can't do that to them.
You can't do that to them. So once those entities were tagged, magically, the owner of Divine jumped in the comments.
It was divine intervention.
a couple disclaimers here before we get started. I do not, nor do I purport to know everything.
Facts.
Because she kept saying that in the goddamn conversation. No, I don't know everything. I don't try to claim that I know everything. That's never been my bag. But what you won't do is piss on my leg and tell me it's raining.
Yeah,
that's not. Where
there are receipts. Yeah, it is what it is.
It's just that simple. Yeah. 2, I very rarely speak publicly about things that I don't know about. It's not a thing that I do.
It's literally a core element
of the podcast
show.
Yeah, like we specifically don't do that because it's one of the reasons why we're not on the bleeding edge of news stories and stuff, because we'd rather be accurate.
Yeah, we'd rather be accurate than popular.
Yeah, that let us breathe for a second. Even with people that we don't like, when we see some shit happening, like, let me get us a prime example. The Diddy trial has started. We're not going to be talking about that because it's still ongoing.
Facts. You notice we haven't even until not counting when it first came out and we reported on it. You ain't heard us saying we're gonna see what happens.
We're gonna see what happens.
We're gonna see what happens.
It's just that simple. Every claim that I make on here is to be taken individually. If I do not specify that I have or have seen proof, assume that it's a conclusion that I came to based on facts that I do have.
Right.
Next, especially since my significant other no longer works there, I have nothing to gain from this discussion other than catharsis and spreading awareness. Speaking of my significant other, thank you.
I ain't get a plate. This is some bullshit.
Tim said he ain't get a plate.
You're not here.
Next, and last disclaimer, I'm going to be as direct and as clear about what I want to say here as I possibly can, because I do not want it to be misconstrued.
Right.
In the event that some of the people who are complaining about the podcast happen to stumble upon this one. So let's talk about the fallout.
I'm gonna keep my words to myself about people complaining about the podcast.
No, you don't have to, but just wait until we get there. The post that I made was strictly about the 401k situation. I alluded to that with y'all last time we talked about Divine. I posted proof, as in screenshots, that the money was not where it was supposed to be.
And by the way, my friend Frank, he also posted proof, a picture of proof from 8 Mile. Anyway, go ahead.
I mentioned that it appeared as if the money was stolen, but my conclusion from the facts was actually along the lines of what I have personally been saying this entire time. Either this is extreme mismanagement, in this specific case, gross negligence, or malicious acts, in this specific case, fraud or theft.
And really, it's only 2 things. It's only 2 things, neglect or malicious.
I never made this statement as a fact claim that Divine was stealing money from its employees.
Right.
I never did that.
Right.
Why? Because I don't have the facts to back that up.
But
I stated what it appeared to be. What we're not going to
do is act like it didn't look weird enough to question.
That part. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So, anyway, the owner aimed for the sympathetic hero thing pretty much throughout the entire conversation. If she was not the owner of the company, I would actually rock with some of it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
But the problem is the effectiveness of the excuse depends on the situation.
And the person using the excuse.
What up, sis? And the person using the excuse. Certain people, due to their position, don't get the grace to be wrong, and definitely not repeatedly wrong.
That part. Position in this matters. If you're somebody who doesn't have any intimate knowledge of the workings of, or responsible to have that knowledge, then you can't be held to the same account as the person. Therefore, when you start saying certain stuff, it's possible that you can be given some grace because you don't have really control over any of those things.
Exactly.
Like your name ain't on the ledger,
right,
so to speak.
When you are taking your driving test, you can't run a red light and still pass the test.
Right.
When you are a pilot, you can't fly your passengers to the wrong location and keep your job.
Right.
When you own a mental health services company, you cannot, through direct action, indirect action, or inaction, mentally damage your therapist and expect everything to just be okay.
And people to just accept certain excuses because some of your reasons fall into the gross negligence department.
That part.
As somebody who has worked in management, as somebody who owns businesses, I gotta tell you, the buck stops at the owner.
That part. Very clearly. Okay. So let's get into the thread. So I'll point out when something doesn't make sense or is contradictory to what I know to be true. We'll start with some of the respectful and somewhat productive parts because the overall back and forth one-on-one
was respectful
between me and the owner, mostly respectful. Yep. And to a certain extent, productive. Absolutely. So she starts by explaining how transparent she is. Transparent is a word that's going to come up a lot.
That's in the title.
Yeah, it's in the title. And then going into how the state transitioning Medicare or Medicaid providers, whatever. I don't know the difference. None of that actually changes what's going on. It just might be a flub on my part either way. That does not change anything. It is ineffectual for the points we are making.
For the purposes of the show,
that the transition has been so horrible for the entire state. She then goes into how there were a bunch of lies and rumors going around, and if anyone wanted to know the truth to any of them, they could reach out to Divine by email. So I've already addressed the fact that she was telling me more on this public post than she had told her employees to that point. So I won't harp on that. But I just want to add that if it was that easy to get answers from her, we would have never been here.
Facts.
We would have never been here.
That was actually part of the problem.
That was part of the problem.
The lack of the transparency with some of these things that were happening.
Right. So she then went into how many happy Black employees she has and how many clients she has and all the good things she's done in the community and how leadership has stopped being paid and given their personal money and taking out loans in order to pay staff. Mind you, I never once questioned any of the community stuff.
Right.
There would be no way the company would have made it to where it is today in the field that it's in without having good work to show for it. It's just not how that works. As far as the leadership and them taking themselves off payroll, blah, 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 I'm not going to comment. I have no comment on that.
Right.
Next, she finally explained what happened with the contribution stuff. Mind you, that's what I posted. I posted about the 401k.
Yeah.
That is the only thing that was in that post. She addressed all those other things before she even got to that. So, I don't know enough about the companies involved to say that she is telling the truth or that she is lying about what she said, but her explanation absolutely seems plausible.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no reason for me to believe she was lying about it.
No reason to doubt that. No reason to doubt it.
So that was great. I replied, though, that was all one comment from her. All that was one comment. So I replied to her that I was aware that the mental health practitioners were affected by the Medicare thing, but I knew several who didn't have to deal with the things that Divine had recently put their employees through in the past month and a half or so, and I ran down the timeline for her. So she starts off by going back to other companies were affected and blah, blah, this and blah. Then she plays one of the worst games of semantics that I've ever been subjected to. So when going down the timeline, I mentioned that they hid the Medicare situation from the employees until they absolutely had to tell them. Her response was that she didn't hide, but she accepts all accountability for not sharing openly about the issue. Ma'am, you knew there were issues since January. And you admitted in a company meeting that the reason you didn't tell the employees about it was because you were afraid that the clients would suffer.
Right.
We are not splitting hairs here. We are not embellishing here.
At all.
That is textbook hiding.
And it's gaslighting
That
to
part.
say otherwise.
If you had been as transparent with your employees as you say you are as a person, they would have had the opportunity to either come up with a budget to potentially deal with a potential financial issue coming down the line, or they could have chosen to leave your company. You robbed them of their choice by deciding to keep that to yourself.
Right.
AKA, you hid that from them.
And the effect is way more prescient than the intent.
Absolutely. So, she also claimed that the week that people didn't get their checks, anyone who reached back out to them about it being a financial burden was paid that day. Now, I'm not going to say she isn't being truthful about that because I have no way of knowing, right? But I do know several people who reached out to them about getting a paper check or Zelle were told that that was not an option. Now, for context, the first email they got that week that had anything to do with this main situation was about them changing payroll management companies. In that email, employees were given until 11:59 that night to give financial information to the new company. Failure to do so meant that employees would be paid by paper check, Zelle, or Cash App. That was in the official email from HR. But when people asked for that option, that was no longer on the table suddenly.
Also, I'm going to say this as mature as I can. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. So when you say for anybody who's going to have hardship for not getting that check, that's everybody.
So maybe that was just another response from her HR team that they sent out that she wasn't aware of.
Possibly.
Also, excuse me for you being so removed from normal people that they have to explicitly reach out to you and deliver explicit details for you to understand that finding out that you aren't getting paid for your last 2 weeks of work 30 or so hours before you're supposed to get paid constitutes a financial burden.
And let me just say this. You're not talking to people who don't have some familiarity with HR. My wife works and has worked for years in HR. So I have had the benefit of hearing her talk about all of these things for the better part of 17 years.
Yeah. I also work for a very small company, and I've been involved in a lot of the different plannings and all that other type stuff. So I've worked closely with HR for several different things. So again, you not knowing me doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about.
Facts.
Right? So that anyway. So the next part of the timeline that she addressed was employees being given 24 hours to accept the amended employment terms, else their employment would be ended at that moment. Now, I used the word, when I talked to her, I used the word threatened. Of course, she didn't like that term. But this one went past mere semantics, right? Her response was simply untrue. It's hard to say she's lying at most points in this conversation because she was so transparent about the fact that she didn't know what was going on in her own company. Also, she isn't the greatest communicator. Maybe she was speaking from the perspective of what should have happened, but it definitely wasn't what was actually happening. Right. She said that no one was threatened that they would lose their job. She said that all of the therapists, save for 8 of them, stayed full-time. And she said the ones who went 1099 were the ones who weren't meeting their billables, and that they were warned about that in January. Now, again, I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything. But I do know that thing about billables isn't completely true.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. I can't tell you how I know that for a fact publicly because of where things are going, but it's just not true. At least not across the board.
Yeah.
It may be the case for a couple people.
Man said that with some people.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying that.
I also know that there was an email sent out from HR that explicitly mentioned that all full-time employment would be transitioned temporarily to either part-time or 1099.
There was no conditional thing.
Bro, when I responded back with the screenshot with that information, suddenly the story is, oh, I didn't read or know about this before it went out. The problem here, and what I didn't mention to her, because I specifically approached this trying to be as productive as possible. And the more proof that I gave her, the more I felt it gave her opportunities to lie to me.
Spin.
And at a certain point, that would have stopped me from being able to maintain a respectful tone.
Right.
So anyway, like I said, I never told her, but even if that was true, I know she knew about it before the final decisions were made because she addressed it in that same meeting. Right. And where someone had to point out to her and her HR team that it would be unethical to terminate a therapist so quickly without their clients being discharged. But again, I didn't expose everything I knew to her for several reasons. She also responded to the email screenshot with, quote, "That's not what ended up happening," end quote. So, a little more teachables. A threat is not a threat because the threatened consequence occurs. It is a threat at the time of the ultimatum.
Yep.
That is when it's a threat. It does not matter if you follow through on that threat or not.
Right.
If I send an email out to you saying these are going to be the changes, you will be contacted by HR with discussion about what your specific change will be. You then have 24 hours to accept that, or your employment will be ending.
Yeah, a threat is separate from the validity of the threat.
That part.
If I say, keep it up, I'm going to grab this car and slap the shit out of you with it.
Right.
That's a threat.
Yeah.
Even if it isn't valid.
It don't matter that I can't pick the car up.
I literally threatened to hit you with the car.
Right. She also kept harping on, quote, only 8 therapists will switch to 1099. What about the therapists who will switch to part-time? Were there any? I don't know.
Right.
But that's what official correspondence claimed would happen.
Right.
What about other employees that went 1099 or were to switch to part-time?
Right.
I don't know, but whatever, moving on. For a recap of what her company told its employees, one, in that email, all clinicians, therapists, and nurse practitioners will be transitioned to contractual employment, i.e. 1099. Second, rehab specialists and program administrators will be transitioned to part-time. That was in the black and white.
Yeah.
That's not something I heard. It's not a rumor.
Right.
That was in official correspondence from HR to Divine's employees.
Also, if this is what HR is sending out to employees, it doesn't matter what your understanding of this is.
Correct.
It matters what the understanding of the person receiving the message
Absolutely.
is. So if they read that, if there is a different understanding of it that you have, then it is incumbent upon you to be clear about that, at the very least with the HR before they send that message out to everybody. That was not supposed to leave the HR's office before you had a chance to look at it.
Right. Again, if that's not what ended up happening, that's cool. It does not change the fact that that's what was announced.
Right.
I didn't ask her about those things because it's frankly none of my business. A lot of this is not my business.
Right.
And she had already said so many things that weren't true. Like I said, at that point, it was starting to get hard to keep the conversation respectful.
But here's the thing, like SBJ is saying, this is none of his business. I'm gonna tell you what it is his business. It is his business how this affects his significant other.
That part.
Because it affects his household.
Mm-hmm.
It affects their financial future.
Reach out to me because they saw me speak out about it.
Right.
That's not my bit. Like that's why some of the proof that I have, I cannot or will not show publicly because that is not my business.
Exactly.
Some of it is things that can potentially get them in trouble because some of them still work there.
Right.
Some of it is just simply stuff that may be embarrassing, so I'm not going to put it out there publicly.
Right.
Some of that stuff is stuff that would be identifiable if the right person saw it.
Right.
And they would know exactly who it was that was. So yeah, no. I've only talked about personal things that affected Chrissy specifically and broader general things.
That's affected Chrissy.
That's all I talked about.
Which, by the way, makes it the business of everybody that care about
that part. That part.
Period.
So the next thing that she addressed was the April Fool's Day joke. Now, I incorrectly stated that it was from HR.
Mm-hmm.
She corrected me on that. It was not from HR.
Okay.
It was from, quote, a 22-year-old young professional, end quote, who was allegedly reprimanded for it. Now, of course, she described her that way to reduce...
An adult? An adult did that?
Of course, she described her that way to reduce the power imbalance in the harmful act. Mm-hmm. This person was a hand-picked executive assistant. That's who this person was.
An adult.
Right. When I pointed out that there was no apology for the email, the owner's response was that I agree with you about the email. What?
So where's the apology?
Right. There was nothing for you to agree about. It was not an opinion.
Right.
It was a fact. No apology came out.
Yeah.
You claim you reprimanded her, but what does that do for the affected people?
Nothing. They still had to deal with that particular part of it, which, by the way, is something that has been mentioned quite often in this conversation. You're dealing with mental health. That part right there. So another thing she did was she said that the NDA was updated for people to not discuss pay or promotions. Now, when Cindy got on there and pointed out to her that restricting employees from talking about wages is illegal, the owner, I don't know which one, either clarified or switched up and said it wasn't about people discussing their own pay. They can do that as much as they want. It was about people discussing other people's pay and that people were doing that. The problem with that is the NDA says nothing about that. Right. Also, how would random employees have access to other people's pay? Right. Also, if that was happening, shouldn't there have been more done than an amendment to an NDA? Yes. Not accusing. I'm just asking questions, right? There was a bunch more to the productive part of that conversation. And if you're interested, you can go to my Facebook profile. Mm-hmm. It is my pinned post
on my page. There was a lot more of me saying something while not exposing everything I knew about it, her not knowing it happened, or somebody needing grace because they're young or inexperienced, more of her telling me good things the company has done, blah, 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 blah. But no matter how much she obfuscated and no matter how much I challenged her, that part of the thread stayed respectful.
Yep.
On to the less productive parts of that thread. So someone jumped in with this gem of a comment. Quote, "You are fucking delusional. I don't understand why you want to spread some such damaging literature." Let's stop right there. Such damaging literature? So screenshots? Facts about what happened?
Yo. And herein lies one of the main issues we talk about on this show. Y'all have an aversion to facts.
Bruh.
When I say y'all, I'm not talking about our people in the audience. We know
the royal y'all.
The royal y'all have an aversion to facts. Facts makes your ass itch, respectfully. So when people bring out facts, you start talking about damage. It's not our fault that the facts damage you or who you're trying to defend. See, that's supposed to work the other way around, right? Whereas this should not have an effect because it's not true. But if it's true and it has an effect, the problem is it shouldn't be true.
That part.
This shouldn't be true. And yet it is. And here's the receipts. Here's the screenshots. Here's the destructive literature that you spoke of. So the truth should not harm you.
No. Should not be damaging at all.
The only time the truth harms you is if it's telling the truth about something you did wrong and you don't want that out to the public.
That part. So
now unfortunately, this is not personal stuff.
Right.
This is business professional stuff dealing with employees and employer. So this is not under the auspices of you put my personal business out. No. That's not what this is. He ain't putting nothing out about your life as far as your personal home life, your family, your this.
Wait,
none of that.
We did later, but that was separate.
Yeah, that was later.
Yeah, that was. I'm gonna get to that though. I'm gonna get to that. So I was allowed the courtesy of going back and forth with the owner by myself from my peoples. My peoples did not jump in. Like McKenna said a thing.
Yeah,
Cindy said a thing.
Gotta love McKenna and Cindy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you got.
But they weren't in there like messing up the respectful conversation. That they did not do that. And nobody else jumped in there messing up the respectful flow of the conversation. Nobody did that. I was afforded the courtesy. What up, Big Mike?
I did respond to her, but not in a way not in the Black Culture Geeks way.
Yeah. So like I said, part of the reason nobody jumped in to the conversation that I had one-on-one with the owner is because that conversation was respectful.
Yeah.
Part of that because several members of the team were already blocked by the owner. But we ain't gonna get into that.
Right.
But there was nothing I could do to stop people from coming to my aid once it got a little spicy. I will say that they still did a good job of keeping their composure.
I think I did a really good job.
I agree.
To the person that called you a liar.
I agree.
I think I did a really good job with
that. So to the comment itself. First of all, this lady was like the owner's best friend's mother or something like that. That's how it was described to me.
Right.
That is not accurate. That is not an assumption that I made. This is what I was told.
Because why would you make that assumption?
Right. Why?
How would you? Yeah. How would
that's
you?
That's so specific of a detail.
Right.
No. This is what I was told. The best friend, the same best friend that was in the comments of the episode where we ripped Divine a new asshole, reporting people's comments and such. That person.
Yeah.
and that person is apparently in a leadership role at Divine, and their mother works there as well. This was their mother. Second, a part of the reason it didn't get crazy is because after her initial comment, she never responded again.
True.
She never went back and forth with anybody.
True.
But things got interested under this particular thread. So I wrote a sarcastic response and just laughed it off.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Chrissy came in.
Still respectful. And
respectful.
She's the one that this is like personally affecting.
Yeah. Still respectful. Dion spoke to the ridiculousness of the lady's comment. Still respectful. The owner jumped into this conversation. This is when she went into overdrive with the sympathetic stuff. She was talking about how many employees are enraged about that podcast episode.
Hold on. Before you continue, I did respond.
Yes.
I said, calling my boy Elijah is crazy. There are receipts. We don't care about any outrage from people who are still there because, frankly, they are compromised and want to keep their jobs. The receipts are the receipts, and the gaslighting from current employees changes nothing.
Correct.
That was for me very tame.
Measured.
Measured response.
Yes. Absolutely.
For me.
So, yeah, she was talking about how many employees were enraged about that podcast episode. She said many have been negatively impacted by the remarks made as we laughed casually about people losing their jobs, and
that's not what we were laughing at.
And that the situation was bad, but it doesn't warrant 100 Black families losing their jobs due to harsh things we said. All right, first of all,
first I almost lost it right there.
No, first of all, why is this the first time she's mentioning anybody losing their jobs? Right. Who lost their jobs?
What hundreds of Black families lost?
Who actually
based off
lost
our
their jobs?
podcast?
Right. Who actually lost their jobs? We talked about Divine. We talked about her personally. We talked about that preaching ass tone deaf nigga.
Yeah. And most of them stayed according to her.
Right. And we mentioned her fiance. As far as I know, they are all still employed. We did not laugh about anybody losing their jobs.
Hell
we weren't aware of anybody losing their jobs. If people did lose their jobs, that's her responsibility. As we didn't talk about any company other than the one she started.
Exactly.
Second, I need to be very clear about this. Because this is where I want to call me delusional. This is where delusion creeps in. Companies don't get shut down over lies.
No, they don't.
That's not what happens. Companies get shut down over investigations that uncover incorrect business practices.
Yeah.
It's business
laughable.
Practices.
It's laughable to try to then point at this podcast with the amount of views we get.
Like, what the fuck are you talking? Yo, so I can come on here and say that company XYZ, that is an upstart out of East Jabip with 3,000 employees. I can say that the owner of the company and the person who runs daily operations are illegal immigrants who are terrorists and they run a sex trafficking ring, and all the shit I want about them is going to have zero actual effect on the company if it's not true.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. We got to keep things in perspective here. On this channel, we have 221 subscribers.
Nigga.
Hold on. Currently, right now in the live, at least here on YouTube, there's 10 people. See,
to be fair, it did get amplified.
Oh, absolutely. Because this don't stay here. This goes to streaming services.
Yeah, but it still wasn't. It's not like we had thousands of people.
This ain't the Joe Budden.
Bruh. We didn't have an audience of 100,000 ready to sign petitions to. Come on now.
it's an exaggeration, and what it is in my opinion. And if I'm wrong, all right, I'll cop to that. It's an opinion. It's an attempt to become the victim,
right?
As opposed to addressing people who were victimized by could be gross neglect. Let's say that, right? But as far as this show is concerned, this is the first thing. This is the first thing you're gonna know about this show. On this show, we don't let anybody get away with anything, including the people ones that we like,
right?
That we are fans of,
right?
That we consume their content or use their services.
That part.
If you do something that looks shaky to us, we're going to say something. And I'm going to say this as respectfully as I can. We don't give a fuck how you feel about it.
No. Oh, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to get to that part. All right. So I do want to address the idea of 100 black families losing their job, right? As a result of me searching for justice. I'm fairly certain that in that very episode, I mentioned that my heart went out to all of the employees there and that I would be sorry if they ended up losing their jobs over the situation. But
hold up, by the way, let me specify this. The situation is not us talking about what the fuck you did. Correct. It's about what you.
But the situation couldn't stand.
No.
That is what I said. Y'all. And she just doesn't understand how many employees and former employees have reached out to us.
Yeah.
It's not a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm not delusional enough to think that every single person who has an issue with the company reached out to me to tell me about it.
Right.
I am a nobody in this situation.
Right.
Again, a couple people just happened to stumble across because it got shared, my post, and they reached out to me because of that. I don't know these people.
Right.
And all of these people are not people that Chrissy came to know while she worked there.
Exactly. And again, you can't make both claims with any credibility. You can't say only 8 people left, but then say hundreds of families lost work.
Like, bro, what are we talking about?
Like, for what? Why? Why would they lose work for anything that was said on this show when the show was targeting your behavior, your policies, what you put in place? What other? Was it a vending machine guy outside? Who else was those people? No, in my humble opinion, that is an attempt to make yourself a victim. And this is the other thing about this show. We've talked about all of these things before, about how people who are the ones that literally are creating the problem, be it on purpose or be it by accident. Some of these people have the type of personalities that once it appears anyway that they're the ones being rightfully pointed at as the person that's the cause of the problem, they will then hide behind this veneer of victimhood. They will try to find some way to put themselves in the line of, hey, but I was a victim too. And that's to stop criticism. That's to stop the criticism. And that doesn't work on this show. If you are an actual victim, we give you the credit for that.
Absolutely.
We give you the credit for that. We give you the space for that. But if you're not, and you're trying to snatch the empathy from the people affected to cloak yourself with, we think that's foul. And we're not allowing it. We don't allow it. Not in our narrative. We're not going to allow that to overtake the narrative. No. There are times where the person that precipitated the bad things was also a victim. Sure.
Absolutely.
Hurt people.
100%.
That does not shield you from the critique of what you've done.
No, not at all.
Or what we can show that has been done.
Absolutely.
And if there's a misunderstanding, it's just that, a misunderstanding. It didn't come out of thin air.
No.
We didn't pull that out of a garbage can somewhere and go, hey, no, there's receipts to these things. And there are real people that were affected by these things that are commenting on these things.
That part.
And again, I say, if we're talking about mental health,
Mm-hmm.
it is important for people who feel aggrieved to be able to have a voice. And it's even more important that they be supported by the people in their lives once they find out, oh, you're having this issue. And that's what we did. And that's what we will always do.
Always.
One way or another, we will use every tool, the show, our writings, even in person.
Yep.
There's no way you're going to, if we're going to perceive a violation to anybody we care about, we're going to handle that.
Very simple.
And I expect for your folks to feel the same way.
Absolutely. That's a good point. With that. That's a good point. That's going to come up a little bit later. So I'll amend my stance that I had before this thread. And
Mike said, causation doesn't negate responsibility.
Facts. It's just that simple. I had a stance before this thread happened, and I will now amend it. Before this thread happened, my only satisfactory conclusion to this would have been Divine shutting down. Yeah. I no longer feel that way.
Right.
It is still a satisfactory conclusion, right, as she really seems like she should not be in charge of so many people. But I think more oversight and someone staying on her ass would actually be satisfactory as well.
I am sure there are. So a business manager would be highly helpful.
So a real HR person.
Right. My wife currently does that for somebody. Business manager.
Yeah.
Somebody that makes sure that someone who may have the investment money and have the vision, but not have any expertise in business, how to run it and all of that, this person comes in and they keep track of all of those things. They make sure that you are conducting things in a certain way. Now, HR is supposed to make sure you're not breaking any laws, right? You're not supposed to be breaking any laws. I know what the stated goals of HR is, but in truth, HR is
about the company. Right.
They're about the company. I didn't work too many places, dealt with too many HRs. At the end of the day, this is about protecting the company. But they can't be expected to be a business manager.
Correct. So like I said, that will be satisfactory to me as well. Oh crap. So did it not go through? Oh, it didn't. All right. So yeah, that would be satisfactory to me as well now. Because now I'm much more clear that it is the whole negligence and not knowing exactly how to handle things. I'm way more convinced that that's what it is now.
And hey, look, I'm empathetic to that to a degree. Like I said, I've had businesses that didn't do well because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And it's a learning process, right? It's a learning process. I'm empathetic to that there could be things you didn't know about the process. And maybe you didn't have the proper guidance, but you still wanted to do this business venture, so you jumped into it. People do that all the time because there is a certain school of thought that says go in, break things, learn from the mistakes.
Facts.
And there's a certain school of thought that teaches that as well in business. What we're saying is, in the process of you breaking things, if you harm someone or cause harm to someone, you're responsible for that, regardless of the fact that you went in not knowing, but you had this vision. Cool.
Yeah.
But whatever the vision was, I am certain, I wouldn't put this on you. I am certain that your initial vision was to help people.
Yeah, sure.
So
because this is the field
that's the field.
Yeah.
So if something you didn't help someone, in fact, it did the opposite of that, don't you think that you should be held accountable for that? And you should want to be held accountable to try to make that person, the people, whole, and also to make sure it never happens to anybody else.
Yeah. So there are only a few ways for someone to do what needs to be done in general in life, right? Either they know how and have the right intentions, or I said, and both of those are necessary, or they are put in a position where they have to.
Right.
I no longer question her intentions to the degree that I did before.
Right.
But it's clear she's not currently equipped for what she's tasked with. It's clear. It's crystal clear. She later added that the podcast was defaming of her and many other people. Let's get into that. So I'm legit at a loss because who are all of these, like Tommy Davidson said on the Breakfast Club interview, who are these niggas?
No, like Seinfeld used to say in his stand-up, who are these people?
Right, like who are all of these people? Like what? Who are all these people she keeps mentioning?
Maybe I want to list the names that we said
because
on the show.
The only thing I can think of is maybe she's counting her HR team as individual people, right? Okay. But if that's the case, I want to make this very clear.
Please do.
Anything bad that I said about HR is not about HR. It's about the owner of the company.
Yeah.
Even the remarks about the preaching ass nigga still fell on the owner of the company because she let that happen.
Yeah.
See, she can bring up many other people as a spin job. That podcast was ultimately about her.
Yep.
Her not knowing what's going on in her own company does not absolve her of this critique.
Also, was any names mentioned?
Just her.
Again, what are we talking?
I may have. I don't even know if I know this nigga's name, but I'll throw it out there and say I may have said her fiance's name. I don't believe I did.
I don't think you did either, because I don't remember nobody's name other than hers.
Just her. And I'm purposely not saying her name in this one.
Right.
But absolutely I said her name in that last one.
My thing is, like I said, if the true intent is to right any wrongs, none of this was malicious, and I don't believe that most of it was malicious. I don't believe that most of it was malicious. But if that's the true thing, it doesn't help your case to try to inflate damage we did on this goofy podcast, as opposed to what happened in business dealings and mistakes made there. Like the whole idea.
Our highest recorded podcast ever is like at several thousand views. Yeah. Our highest individual episode that was from a recorded. I don't know. I don't remember what the live did. I don't remember what it did in other places, but specifically on Spotify, our highest viewed recorded podcast was only a few thousand views. Like, what are we talking about?
Right. Again, I will say, this ain't the Joe Budden podcast.
No,
this ain't Rory and Maul. This ain't the academics. Like, come on, man. We have a very niche.
Since said break things and rebuild later philosophy is only employed by the inept.
C.
Musk. Point of order, sis. I'd rather not.
Yeah, we don't want to see him.
I'd rather not.
That's the other thing that bothered me. So when they mentioned the show, my response was, this podcast is also a platform for entertainment. As far as white organizations, because they brought that up.
Okay. That's a specific point, because we're not leaving that shit out.
Yeah.
So it's frankly embarrassing how little she knows about what's going on here. Like, at some point in our interaction, I brought up the fact that the day the email went out informing the employees that they wouldn't be paid, the company meeting was canceled as well. She responded back in one comment that there wasn't a meeting scheduled. And in another comment, she responded that she didn't know there was a meeting scheduled. The problem with that is these were monthly meetings that happened every single month on whatever Wednesday of the month that was.
Right.
Like, this wasn't new. The meeting wasn't about the pay thing.
Right.
It was a monthly meeting.
It was a regular meeting.
All the damn time.
All the time. Yeah. Yeah.
For you to not know that is alarming, frankly. Like, what? Anyway, then she did the thing that pissed me off. Here we go. She had been alluding to it here and there throughout the conversation, but she eventually just threw it out there with her whole chest. Quote, "This could have been a platform to help improve a company, But it still doesn't make any sense. All these white organizations that not anyone ever speaks up about, with all the atrocities they commit against the black communities. End quote. Nigga,
you got the wrong show.
At the time, I was not responding to what, like, by that point in that thread, I hadn't come in there and responded to her. I was just letting her rock. I was letting her rock. I was letting her vent because our one-on-one had been respectful.
Exactly.
And also because even though she got some things wrong to that point, that was absolutely, I had already had my time to vent.
Exactly.
And get my emotions out. So I was trying to be fair. But to insinuate that I, of all people, was somehow caping for Whitey, to insinuate that Tim?
Yo.
Nah, nigga.
So, and with that, my response to that was, the podcast is also a platform for entertainment. As far as white organizations, our show has done extensive episodes on white supremacy. And we try to do it in an entertaining way that may not appeal to everyone. But our moniker is, your heroes have no power here. It doesn't matter what ethnic group you come from when you are wrong and have caused harm. There's certainly an argument to be made that it's worse when we're doing that to ourselves. Now, listen clear. What's not going to happen is you're not going to tell a self-professed Pan-African since my 20s that has joined several organizations and worked with several organizations to that end, including Marcus Garvey's group, the UNIA. You're not going to sit here and say that the only thing this show did was focus on a black business. Let me tell you something. We've talked about everything on this show, from history, slavery, segregation, all of that, to its effects now. We've talked about reparations. We talked about all this stuff on the show, and we put on blast more racist motherfuckers than most of these black podcasts that just deal with pop culture stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There ain't no way you can make that accusation and have watched this show. There's no way.
What?
It's insane.
A cursory perusal of my timeline on Facebook.
Nigga.
Like, what are we? If you look at Tim's timeline right now, look at all he's talking about is liberation of African countries.
What are we talking? Yo, I'm not, bro. Like
what are we doing here?
Yo, I'm a musician.
Nigga.
I have songs.
Yo,
he's a musician. He has songs. Go check out the content of them songs.
Yo, we have 2 collabs. Both of them are about this shit. What are we talking about here?
What's the name of the show? Yo, that's one of the other times in that conversation where I felt the weight, but I still restrained myself from talking the way I would have talked about that specific thing, because I understood what the mission was. The mission was to get the communication, to get the back and forth, and to get the information, right? Absolutely. That was the mission. And I wasn't going to step on that mission because my man's had it. But what I didn't like is people who had nothing to do with this coming in and accusing him of being a liar.
Yeah.
Now, just to be fair, I have an expectation that you got people that care about you. Mm-hmm. That you got people that's willing to go to the mat, cut and bleeding for you.
Mm-hmm.
I respect it.
Thanks.
I respect people coming in to defend people in their circle.
Mm-hmm.
But part of that, though, is not just you doing that, it's you dealing with the backlash of that too. And the only that's part of it. Yeah. And the only reason it didn't get as ugly, because one, there were several people that are in our circle that did not see the post. That's one. And two, like I said, I am not going to be the one that fucks up what the purpose of this is.
Facts.
Despite how I may feel or how I want to talk, like I said, there were certain people who are a little less controllable, right? That's going to come in hot,
facts.
Right? And I'm glad they didn't see it because that would have deflated the entire.
Well, again, I want to reiterate that some of them were blocked by her. So
right,
they could not see it.
Right. But come on now, like the accusation, you don't know us,
nigga.
And I'm gonna tell you something. There are a lot of people that hide behind, especially in business, and this is unfortunate. There are a lot of people that hide, black business owners, that hide behind what ethnic group they are,
unfortunately,
while they are exploiting black people. I'm not saying that's you.
No.
I'm not saying that's you. I'm saying that
it's just the proof that that's not enough.
It's not enough.
Yeah,
it's not enough.
So
it's not going to circumvent valid critique.
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. What up, Ryan?
What up, Ryan?
So I still didn't disrespect her. I didn't even really defend myself. What I said was,
you didn't.
I said there are only a few things that you have said about your company in this conversation that I have fought back on. Because again, I am very aware that your company does good.
Yep.
That was never in question. But what we're not going to do is pull this quote, but white companies get to.
Yeah,
that's a major lack of accountability. And before this point in this conversation, you have shown to be better than that.
Exactly.
I am not making up this very real harm that your company has inflicted upon its employees. Whether it's intentional or not, doesn't matter. Whether you knew it was happening or not, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Whether it impacts every single person under your employee or not, doesn't matter. And whether you have had behind the scenes conversation with your team to attempt to train them retroactively or not, it doesn't matter. Real harm was done.
Yeah.
Now, after I said that, she tried to backpedal a little bit.
Yeah, I don't like it because so there is a certain amount of accountability that we should have amongst each other. This is also part of a Pan-African creed, right? There's a certain amount we owe each other a certain amount of accountability in order for that to work, right? Meaning if we make agreements with one another, unless there's something that takes place that prevents us from fulfilling our end of it, we need to be on the whole thing of fulfilling our end of it because we owe accountability to one another. That's the only way that works. Right. That's the only way that works. Trying to circumvent that part of it by then throwing white institutions as interference, what it does for you, it does you a disservice to all the stuff you're trying to do, all the stuff that your vision told you that this is why I'm starting this in the first place. And these are these policies that, from what I have at least read, a lot of those policies are dope. Like what you're trying to do for the community is dope, right? But what it does is it kind of pulls away from that to hide behind what white institutions do. We're supposed to be better than that to each other at the very least, because that's literally why we say we're doing these things.
That part.
Because these other institutions treat us a certain type of way. So maybe people who are part of our community, all part of our diaspora, will treat us better because they can relate to us more, and they're at least not supposed to have centered that white supremacist ideal that we deserve less than, less services, less this, less that. So hiding behind that, no bueno.
I like it.
No bueno.
So, like I said, she tried to backpedal a little bit. She said the white comment was pertaining to the direct way you went about on the podcast, not in your attempts to rectify wrongs. Again, as stated, I do accept all accountability, and accountability is action. We have been taking steps to rectify our procedures and our policies. We also now have support directly from the government. I appreciate your insight. So I said, the overall premise of the show has already been explained, but I would like to point something out. What you saw on the podcast was the human element. That was the feelings and emotions of hearing people's stories about what your company has put them through. Right. We've clarified some of that in this conversation. This conversation between you and I has focused on the facts that are immediately provable. That's why you have not and will not receive disrespect from me here.
Right.
You addressed pretty much everything I've said head on. That podcast was at a time where you and HR were not being completely open with your employees. Thing after thing was happening, and employee upon employee was reaching out to you for clarity, and they were not getting acceptable answers. An employee could send a message to HR about the contributions not going through at the beginning of the day and not hear a word. But later in that same day, they could ask a question about something else and get an immediate reply.
Right.
Also, I know there are lies and rumors, and I said there are some that were outrageous and that I rejected.
And you said that.
But there were still some things that people were scared to provide proof for, which did not seem out of the realm of possibility. I think you need to focus more on the human element when it comes to your therapist. There are things that aren't breaking any rules, but still cause potential harm. Being hired under certain rules and benefits and then having 5 or so major revisions to the handbook within a year of employment is not okay. Being hired under the understanding that you would be working out of one office, then being told it was mandatory to go to whatever office any new client you're assigned to wants to go is not okay. Having multiple times where pay is late or direct deposit doesn't go through, and you guys still using the same payroll company is not okay. Whether these things are in your control or not, they don't contribute positively to morale, especially when they feel things aren't being properly explained to them. Now, she gave that a heart. She gave that comment a heart. Mm-hmm. She didn't say anything else, right? Mm-hmm. But her sister did. So her sister says, so her sister tags her and says, "You're such a wonderful woman and a wonderful employer. I remember years and years ago after working for the state for some time, you telling me how passionate you were about opening a practice that would be a safe place for your, all caps, employees to grow and flourish, ! Has it been perfect? No. Is anything ever? No. But you are wise enough to learn from every experience, including this one, and I have watched you alchemize all things for good purpose." Then she switches her attention over to me. Interesting. I understand and acknowledge everyone who has been hurt throughout this ordeal, and I wish I could have focused more on that. So I hope you guys also learn from this as well. That podcast episode was very harmful because not only were you guys, hold on, let me see something. Okay, because not only were you guys talking about the culture at Divine, but you were speaking about some of her personal business, including her fiance, as well as making very unnecessary jokes about my sister's life's work, company name, and I'm sure there was a lot more that I personally couldn't waste 3 hours of energy watching. The way you guys retaliated was quite savage and ruthless, to be honest, and the coarse jesting was completely unnecessary and contrary to what you were saying. That is not human at all. It's actually very nasty, and that's exactly why this earth is headed in the direction it's in, because humanity doesn't know how to deal with one another in raw and righteous reproval. Yeah. You can't be violent against what you perceive as violence and think that's helpful. I pray and fast for humanity for this very reason, because as a collective, our senses are completely infiltrated, and we call that human sad. Healing is necessary for everyone that reads this, and I'm speaking on the wise. I don't know what she's supposed to be saying, but I'll skip that because I don't want to butcher her words. Let it be in the upright reproval, not anger, frustration, entertainment, and gossip. I pray that the cosmic residue from this art finds everyone swiftly and gently, and that everyone involved evolves. Peace.
Okay.
So,
I'm gonna let you go, right?
So, so I say, because come on now. Hold on, let me check something real quick. All right. So I replied back. I want to be very clear about this. My intention at the time of recording was absolutely not to be helpful to a company that caused so much harm to its employees, and by extension, its clients and its employees' families. That podcast was to put the results on blast. Anything that we said there was 100% intended to make the company look as bad as the reviews and reports sounded. It was retaliatory. Speaking for myself only, I did not misspeak. And the feelings you guys felt listening to it absolutely fell into my intent. The purpose was also 100% not to be fair, as the company was not fair to its employees and how they handled things. I did not make up any direct claims.
Which, by the way, the fact that you didn't make up any direct claims, and for every claim you had some sort of a receipt for it, that is being fair.
Right. I did not make up any direct claims. I did not lie. I did not defame. I was a conduit for the people who were negatively impacted and felt they could not speak up. I was clear when I was speaking on something I didn't have proof on and was just speculating about. Several times in that episode, I pointed out that there is no proof that Divine's actions were malicious. I also pointed out times when our comments could have come across as callous. The reason this conversation went so differently is because there was information and accountability given here. Those things didn't exist when that podcast was recorded.
Nope.
Had Divine done right by all of their employees,
there
would have been nothing for me to call out or expose.
Right. You don't get that.
It's almost as if you guys are holding us to a standard that Divine was failing to meet. Because of this conversation, I will never be that venomous publicly moving forward when speaking about Divine. However, just like your sister is standing on defending her team, I stand by what I did in that episode.
Let me just say this. Talk about jokes and cracking and all of that. Talk about humanity and all of that stuff. This is part of the problem, and we've actually discussed that on this show in various different conversations as well.
Absolutely.
You place humanity as if at the core of it, it's this pristine golden light. That's not what humanity is. That's not what humanity ever has been, even despite whatever worldview tries to shape it into that. The reason we have emotions is because it's outside stimulus. Because of the fact that something can happen on the outside to you, and your brain is going to react to it a certain type of way. And it's natural. It's natural. The idea that you think that, especially Black people, you know how we get down.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody does harm, when somebody does something we don't like, the best thing we can do is joke them.
Jokes
because
fly.
the alternative to that is horrible.
Absolutely.
The responses going the other way is horrible.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem. But that too is also human. Some humans are going to respond violently. Some humans are going to respond with jest. Some humans are going to withdraw within themselves and not respond at all. All of those things are human, including us making jokes.
That part.
This show will always make jokes.
Always.
But if you watch this show and see the stuff we stand up against, those jokes have better context.
Absolutely.
You haven't watched this show.
No.
You haven't gone through all of the different episodes where we literally jumped in the ass of motherfucking exploiters, be they from sexual abusers on to economic abusers.
These are people that are,
when you get the entire context of the show, guess what? Your perception and that little thing you did to defend your sister, which I respect, has no bearing on what we do here. And as SBJ said, it's human. when somebody does something to you to harm you or to a loved one for you to react. It's human.
That part.
I stand by those jokes. And it ain't a single joke that costs anybody their job. That's absurd. That's absurd. It's absurd reasoning. That's what we do here.
100%. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand. Well, I do understand. Let me be clear. I do understand. 100%. I get the emotions. Let me let me move on and out. We'll go around to some reflections and such.
Yes.
So then she never responded, of course. But another person got on, the main post talking about, I've been working there for years. And I love my job. No complaints. Now,
good for you.
There was a point in time. I swear, get out of my brain. There was a point in time when I first saw that shit that I was going to post. I was going to comment. Good for you,
right?
And simply just that.
Yeah. That's just what else is there to say?
There's nothing else for me to say.
You had a great experience. Good for you, bro.
I do not proclaim to know everybody's experience. However, don't discount ours.
Yeah.
Now, I could have said all of that, but again, I just left it alone.
You didn't need to listen, bro. You had a good time. You having a good time.
That part.
You getting your money.
That part.
I want to see you get your money, black
Absolutely.
Man. I want to see you have a good time.
Get your money, black woman.
I ain't as a black woman. I don't mind. I'm glad that happened for you.
Absolutely.
Now, as much as I'm happy that you're having a good time, can you be a bit empathetic to people who aren't?
That part.
So, I'm willing to celebrate you having a great time at the job.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But are you willing to just acknowledge and have some empathy for those that didn't?
Nah. Because why would you expect that from people who work at a mental health wellness?
Oh.
Yeah, nah. That's off brand. That's off brand. So given the pattern that was developing, I'm assuming that maybe this was her cousin or something. Like, I have no reason to believe it. I have no
cousin works
on
there.
it, and I'm not claiming that it is. This is just me speculating. But to be clear, again,
I'm gonna tell you what happened though, bro. Why that's a thing. So when you go on Amazon, there's reviews.
Absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm. And depending on the product, the reviews could vary.
Yeah.
But there's a percentage of people who either liked it a lot or didn't like it. And you can tell just by the numbers of the comments, and they even showed us how many stars, 5 stars, 1 star, all that other stuff. What that comment seemed to me to be was like the comments you see on those Amazon reviews.
Yeah.
This was somebody just coming in to say, this is a great company.
Right.
This is a great company.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it very much. Just to be able to occupy space on the positive side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can only assume that this person came from a department that is not actually directly dealing with the clients and stuff. Because that's the department that was really affected by most.
Probably so.
So
listen,
everybody else may not have been affected at all.
I was thinking that. Like, if your particular job description there doesn't deal with this part of it, you might be having a great time.
Yeah, they might not even be aware that this shit happened.
Exactly. So and I'm glad. We want to make this very clear. If you're having a good time, you're paying your bills, your family straight, and the job, your work-life balance is great, congratulations.
Absolutely. More power to you.
We here to celebrate you and celebrate that. Keep it up. Keep up the good experience and keep up the good work. But for those that are not, and the fault of it is through gross negligence of the company itself, we here to stand for them.
That's it.
Like in this society, right? There are people who are having a bad time. They don't make enough money. They've been the victims of racial discrimination, gender discrimination, whatever the case is. They got into an accident.
Yeah.
And then the system didn't take care of them the way they were supposed to. There are people that's having a bad time.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, there are people that's doing very well.
Absolutely.
That's out on a yacht right now.
100%.
That's eating at the best restaurants right now.
Mm-hmm.
They got a nice big ass house right now.
Speak on it.
When the stock markets drop, they go and buy a lot because they know when it goes back up,
Mm-hmm.
and they can take the cushion. Those people are doing well. Now, if you want to fall on the side of the person that's celebrating them, that's you.
Yeah.
If you want to say that society is great because they have it great,
Yeah.
that's you. But we're on the side of, hey, if 10 people over here are got screwed by any systemic thing, we riding with them.
That part.
We gonna speak up on their behalf because the people that's doing well, they can speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
They got it.
They don't need us.
They don't need us.
So, to be clear again, I do not care that her sister, her best friend's mother, and that one random employee enjoy working there.
Also,
not my business.
I respect them. I respect
Absolutely.
the act.
Go
of
to bat for your
defending
people.
Somebody, go to
Facts.
bat for your folks.
Facts. That's not my business. I know firsthand and secondhand that harm was done.
Yeah.
All of the harm does not fall under the issue with the Medicaid situation. A complete overhaul of how things are done is needed if that company is to stay in business. I will reiterate that she needs to do a better job of understanding how people behave. When you make a post talking about how a percentage of your shares are up for sale and you're bragging about how much the company is worth, of course people are going to panic when a couple weeks later they don't get paid.
Right.
You don't need a psychology degree to forecast that. Right. You posted that to a public group, but Miss Transparency didn't think to talk to her employees about that ahead of time. Knowing about the Carolyn issue in January and not telling your employees about it until it was too late was a terrible decision. But she claims it was a bad decision made with good intentions.
Okay. You're not allowed to say that though, SPJ. Nobody's allowed. When you say that, say that, you're defaming people, right, and you cost hundreds of people their jobs for you saying that.
Right. So, okay, but you couldn't predict that the time to jump in and regain control of your company was before HR had to send official correspondence out to the employees about it? Even with the conflicting and contradictory emails from HR, which started the last week of March, by the last week of April, you didn't deem it necessary to formally address those issues with your employees?
Bro.
You thought the April Fool's joke was in poor enough taste for you to reprimand the person who did it, but it never crossed your mind to send out an apology to anyone that the email reached? That email that HR sent out in the middle of the day telling people that they would no longer be employed full-time wasn't crazy enough to apologize for either. These are not simple mistakes. This is active harm through negligence.
By the way, defense for any of that stuff has to be a little more than
right, or they're young. What do they mean? So,
and by the way, what I'm speaking of specifically is any of the people, not you, but around you, that feel to come. The defense to that can't be no. How?
You think everybody under your employee who was affected by these things that's not complaining to you are still happy with the company? That's true. What up, McKenna? That's true delusion. Yeah. I'm not saying that nobody is still happy. I'm simply saying that to assume that everyone would be foolish.
Yeah.
You never brought up how many people chose to leave the company, which I get because it wouldn't have been beneficial to the point that you were trying to make. Mm-hmm. And frankly, it's another thing that's not my business. Right. Absolutely not. But as I keep reiterating, there are a bunch of people who have reached out to me with a bunch of stuff. Some about Divine specifically, some about broader things.
Right.
I promised in one of my responses that I wouldn't be venomous publicly. I will keep that promise, but that does not stop me from giving my opinion and expressing my feelings. Right. As a man who might have seen his biological father maybe 30 or so times in my life, and I'm 37.
Right.
This whole thing is giving big deadbeat parent energy. Think about it. How many times has the word neglect come up? Not even speculation. I mean proven signs of neglect.
With receipts.
You don't even be in Divine's life like that. You are learning things about it from a complete stranger. But you want to talk about how proud you are of it. You know my post was public and it was getting eyes on it, so you had to talk about how much good you've been doing with your baby. Making promises about you coming back. This isn't the first time you've made that promise and didn't follow through. You said you were going to go live on Wednesday. I had current employees asking me if I ever saw any evidence of that because they couldn't find any trace. But you give them money, right? Right. You kept saying in our back and forth how everybody had been paid for the work they did. Okay. You understand that that's a bare minimum, right?
They're supposed to be paid.
Also, nobody was saying anything to the contrary. You want to tell me how enraged the staff is about me talking about harm that you are responsible for, but you downplay the actual harm you've caused. You telling other people how their actions affect your child, but ignore the fact that your inaction is doing more damage. Again, your child being Divine. But your inaction is doing more damage. You talked about how you're only 32, how the person who sent out the April Fool's Day joke was only 22, how your HR team is young and in need of training. Don't that sound like I was young and just a kid myself?
Yeah.
So to completely close this chapter publicly, I wish the best for anyone under the umbrella of Divine Counseling LLC. I encourage anyone looking to be under that umbrella in any way to reconsider and do a bit more research. If somehow the company shuts down, I wish all employees who did not participate in any of this foolishness, I hope that they find their way back to their feet immediately. If the company does not shut down, I hope the owner institutes some actual transparency and gets the right people in the right places to help run the company and to actually check her when something is going wrong. I also hope she gets a new buzzword because transparency is not waiting to tell the truth until someone confronts you about it or you have no choice. Transparency is realizing something and then explaining it to those who it may affect.
Yeah, it's CC everything.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's a very simple way to go about it.
Hold up.
McKenna says, I feel that analogy, SPJ. This feels like the time my bio father got verbally smacked down and exposed for talking about me when he's not in my life. He was getting into info from my mom's Facebook post and then got exposed by her friend publicly. I'm just saying that's the energy it gives, and that's my trauma from being a child.
What she just said,
bro.
That's literally what happened in
bro.
my situation too.
That's what I'm saying. Like I am a child of a deadbeat father. Same. That's the energy that this is giving to me.
Yeah.
That's how I.
No, you know the funny thing about that too, SPJ. There are he is the product of a deadbeat father. I am a product of a deadbeat father. You know what's crazy about us though? This man has raised several kids.
I have.
So have I. Because we went out of our way to say that cycle ends with us.
Yeah.
That cycle ends with us.
Thanks.
That's all we saying.
That's it.
Let that cycle end. Whatever the case was.
Yeah.
Let that cycle end so that it's no longer, the business is no longer operating that way. It's no longer penalizing some people that work there. Yeah. That's all. Because neglect is a penalty.
Absolutely.
Neglect is a penalty because even if I didn't know or I didn't whatever, it still causes harm. People are still penalized by that, even if it's not everybody that works there.
Right. You can't not know.
You can't.
You're not in position to not know.
You're not in position to not know. That's it.
You can't be the person. Like you can't have that excuse. That's not how that works. Right. As a parent, you can't have the excuse of not knowing what's going on in your kids' lives.
Yeah.
You can't have that excuse. That's not how that works. You can't just show up and show them off in the good times, or when someone directly comes up to you and combats how your behavior has been affecting them. You can't just be like, oh, no, they love me. No, that's not how that works. You can't do that. But it's been 2 weeks since we had an episode. So this is all, even this is all week in review type shit.
This is all week in review.
Yeah, that's all this is.
This is all week in review.
So do you want to go first or?
Yeah.
All right.
So it's a couple of things. This week, I kind of hinted to it earlier on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I talked about this a little bit with SPJ before we got on here, about my form of arrested development. Right?
Facts.
So it's been that way since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Where my age does not necessarily, you can't pair that up with my behavior at times or level of maturity at times, right? It's always been that way. It wasn't until I was older that I had a word for it, right? Because of that, no matter how old I get, there's still parts of my personality that's going to force me to react a certain type of way to certain things, even though that's probably not the way I should react to it. Now, I've had enough restraint to be able to get rid of the going back and forth to jail shit out of the life, getting in trouble with it. I've had enough restraint to deal with a lot of that stuff. So I'm not still doing that same goofy ass shit. I've had enough restraint of that to be able to raise kids, to be good kids and better adults, right? Better than me in a lot of cases, right? I've had the ability to be able to restrain that. But there's still certain things that I will get into that I shouldn't, considering my age. Now, I just turned 56 last month. I am an elder, honestly. After 55, you're going into elder type shit.
100%.
There are certain things I need to be cognizant of because of this. For instance, this week, I went out, decided I'm going to take me a walk. I was fine. I didn't even really go super far like I usually would take a 6-mile trek. So I didn't even do all of that. I came back in the house. As soon as I sat down, ache here, ache there, ache everywhere. Like, what the fuck? I didn't fall, right? I didn't get hit by anything.
You fell
what the hell? Yeah, facts. Facts. Like, what the fuck's going on? Well, I'm gonna tell you what the fuck's going on. Nigga, you 56.
Indeed you are.
And there are times when your body's like, no! They see this shoulder right here? I didn't fall. I didn't get hit with anything. I didn't get into a catch-can rumble with somebody out there on the street. It's not what happened. None of those things. But for the past couple of weeks, if I raise my arm over my head, this shoulder, all the way down to just above the bicep, is on fire. The other one's fine. The left. The left one's fine.
Okay.
I don't know how that happened. But what I can assure you of one thing is, it's because you're 56.
I think that has something to do with it.
I think it got something to do with it. And as I looked at that, I also said to myself, so because of the arrested development, there were some things that I kicked the can down the road on. Right? Yeah, I'm not dealing with that. It'll be all right. That sort of shit.
Yeah.
Well, 56, roughly 10 years out from official retirement, those things tend to bite you in the ass.
A little bit.
And then you wind up realizing, oh shit, I got this debt. I gotta pay this shit. I gotta at least find a way to adjust the rules of it so that it's not still a thing during retirement time. Because that would be ass. And it leads me to this. There are certain things I no longer have time for. There's certain things that are now I need to expedite. Right? And those things are difficult because for me, one of my tendencies, and I know it doesn't look like that because I do all of this other stuff, is if things start to become too complex and too many different working parts, and it's not something I'm passionate about, I lean away from it. You know what I'm saying? Like, too many working parts. The problem with that is some of those things are important, and you can't do that with. You have to find a way to push through it. One of my favorite statements has always been, everything you want in this life is past that door you don't like. That door you're afraid to walk through. Everything you want is on the other end of that. So you have to figure out a way to push yourself to do that shit. That's where I'm at now. Fighting myself, fighting my tendencies to make sure I can get some of this shit done. And in the process of doing that sort of shit, it runs afoul of other things that I'm trying to do. Yo, I have a list of things that need to get done a mile fucking high now.
Nigga.
I got books to ship out. I got verses to finish. You know what I'm saying? Like,
McKenna brings up a good point.
Oh, she says, I would check into the ergonomics of your computer area and anywhere else you spend a lot of time. That part. I'm in my 20s and my shoulder can hurt if I have my keyboard wrong. That part.
I can't show you. That's why I have this mouse that I have. Instead of holding it like this like this, mine, it's like a side thing. You hold it like this, and it's actually so much better. It's night and day difference. I thought it was the first time I saw it was at work. Somebody had
this is dumb.
I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. I was like, yo, how do you even use the mouse? Like, nah, nigga, I used it. I was like, this is life. Night and day.
You know, it's funny too because, and I hate when people do this, but sometimes it needs to be done. I will accept that sometimes it needs to be done. So my wife needed to do something behind my computer. She came over, got behind the computer. And while she was over here, she started making note of things that need to be different and change and this, that, and that. I hate when people come in my space.
Guess what?
Tell me what to do with my space.
Guess what? You better listen to that woman.
Listen, but she ain't wrong. And
absolutely,
after I got over how dare you come to my space, tell me about this, that, and the third, I had to acknowledge the fact that, I mean, you right.
Yo, that's funny because Chrissy and I are rewatching the show How I Met Your Mother, and that's one of the, in the last season, that's one of the running jokes that happens. Somebody will make an observation about somebody, and they'll be like, how dare you? What is that?
Yo, that's because it's a reflex.
Right.
What you got to understand is, this is my workspace. And I have one of these things with me where if my desk is not cluttered,
nigga,
I feel like I have no
ideas.
ideas.
ADHD. We've talked about this already. I have the same affliction.
There's nothing on my desk. Somehow I translated there's nothing up here.
No work is getting done.
No work is getting done. I have nothing. Like, oh, you got new verse to write.
That is not.
You got to finish up this comic book story.
What comic book?
Right. It's been that way forever. I didn't know what it was, of course, because most of the ways people talk about their ADHD and stuff like that, well, other people talk about it who aren't that. They talk about all this stuff that we know about it. Like, you know, they don't talk about the other ancillary things that's also connected to that.
Yeah.
It sucks. And I have to put in the work. I have to. But at the same time, I just turned 56. I'm 10 years from not wanting to work. So, so listen. These are things this week that I find the connection to, right? Like for me, when it comes to success, there are things that I've done that have been successful, but very few of them are long-term things, right? And for me, it always seems like everything is 2 years away. The big shit or the big win is always 2 years away, right? Oh shit! In about 2 years, then them 2 years go by. Like another 2 years, I'm 56. How many more of these two motherfucking years I got to waste on certain things? So that's when I had to come to certain realizations. There are certain choices that I made back then that I shouldn't have. So it's forcing me to make choices now. I don't want to, but I'm going to, because it's really no choice. Yeah. And that's also part of one of the issues with me. Is that I'm last minute Lenny. Now let me be clear with you about what that means. That doesn't mean I'm late to things. No, I'm typically early for shit. It just means that when there's deadlines for things that I have to do, I do my best work when I'm forced to get. You gotta.
That's what that's called.
What's that?
ADHD, nigga. It's another symptom.
And it sucks, but it's a reality. And I had to acknowledge it. Much like people acknowledge Roman Reigns. I had to acknowledge that. These past 2 weeks have been that. Now, the other day, I think I mentioned this one time before, but this is an update to it. My mother-in-law had a surgery to remove the stent that they put in from, I talked about last time, she had to go to the hospital and all that stuff. It was successful. Not only that, but whatever kidney stone that was that seemed to be trapped up in there was gone. Now, there's still another one there that's immovable, but that wasn't the one that was causing the issue.
Right.
The one that was gone. Good news. I was supposed to have a doctor's appointment yesterday. I forgot about it. And when I remembered it, I'd already screwed it up because I was supposed to fast for between 8 to 10 hours before then because they could take blood tests. Well, because I forgot about it, fasting? Nigga, that's me we talking about. So I'm studying, and then my phone calendar notification. You got a doctor's appointment, your yearly exam shit. I stopped mid-bite like, what time is it? Fuck! So I have to reschedule that again for this week, right? Because I got to get that done. And let me tell the rest of you, especially young people, get your yearly done every year at the very least.
Absolutely.
At the very, you want to catch whatever. And if nothing else, it puts a battery in your back when you get a report of clean health. It's battery in your back. Oh, I'm good. Ready to go out there and fuck yourself up. Right? You ready to go out there and fuck yourself up. But do that. I know people wait till they around my age and start doing shit like that. Not advisable. Not advisable. Every year, at least get a yearly.
Yeah.
Every year. Had them check your blood, check all the other stuff. Make sure that there's nothing that if you'd have caught sooner, you would have been all right. Because you didn't. And this is actually something I tell my kids on a regular basis, you'll stop. Because I know you're young. My daughter just turned 28. My son just turned 30. Stop thinking because you feel good now, ain't nothing wrong with you. Could be.
Facts.
Could be. The other thing about this week is, as far as the outside is concerned, it rained like a son of a bitch. I mean, just day after day with the rain shit. Now, I cut that lawn out back days and days ago. But because it rained, shit is back. You know what I'm saying? Shit is back. Now, every time I tell myself, okay, I'm going to go cut it, it rained again. Then the grass is wet. I'm not cutting wet grass. I'm not doing it. I've tried that before. It's ass.
Yeah.
Not happening. What I did notice, though, because of all of that goddamn rain, so SBJ, you know, you seen my backyard. There is a woods out there, and some of those trees overlapping a canopy over my yard. I don't remember the wind being that egregious. I do remember it raining really, really hard, but I don't remember the wind being that. But somehow a tree came down. And it came down on top of the tree that overlaps my yard.
Crazy.
So every time I go out there and look at that shit, I know I got to cut this grass, but that means I got to do it under this.
Yeah.
What does it really take for the weight to find? Say, oh, fuck it. And I'm under that shit with the lawnmower.
Oh, God.
No! All of a sudden, the shadow. No! So now there's that I have to have on my mind. So unfortunately, that tree that canopies over my yard is not on our property. It's on the neighbor's property. And that tree that landed on top of that tree is in the woods. Some guy give.
It will.
Oh,
it will.
Something has got to goddamn give because, and hopefully not that. That shit has to be cut up, chopped, something, because it's just a matter of time. Here's the bad thing. It's one of the bad things. Since I lived here, since I moved here, it's always been canopy over, but it's got lower and lower every year. The branches have grown. It's got lower and lower every year. So even without that tree being on top of it, typically what happens during a certain part of the year, when the leaves and all that shit get on it, is that while I'm cutting the grass, I got a duck.
Right.
In certain parts of it. Now with that thing on top of the tree, one tree on top of the other tree, it adds a whole new scenario.
You got a whole obstacle course back there.
Bruh. Here's the other thing. I don't know why he did this. I can't even fathom why he did it. The landlord who planted that fig tree that's just outside my back door. That fig tree is tall now. And the branches spread out wide. So sometimes, every so often, it needs to be trimmed because it starts interfering with the roof of the shack next to the backyard. It has to be cut. Now, because I went to war with these wasps, a lot of figs don't be growing on that tree no more or getting ripe because the wasps actually help. It's the problem. Yeah. Circle of life, the wheel of fortune. Yeah, that sort of shit. But because I have changed the ecology around this motherfucker by protecting my home and hearth from these wasps, you don't see that as much anymore. So it does grow figs, but a lot of them don't really get ripe, but they drop off and all that other shit. You don't see a lot of that. My landlord, however, planted another fig tree in the middle of the yard. Now, that thing was there when we first moved here. It was just a little twiggy thing with and now that motherfucker is really like out there in the way. All right. The question I have though is, why there? Because you see, that canopy is literally right over where that tree is. We've been here about 6 years or so, something like that. And in those 6 years, that fig tree now, you could tell it's getting pretty substantial. And it probably would have did that sooner had he planted it right, but he didn't initially. And it fell down. They had to go in and do some shit to it, whatever. But whatever the case is, it's straight now and it's growing. But because of the height of this fig tree, that it's going to be the same type of fig tree as the other one, it's going to grow up in those branches of the canopy of trees. It just is. Why would you do that? Now it's bad enough that when you circle my the fence of my yard, weeds and shit get up there. Sometimes the motherfucking weeds will climb up the gate to reach the tree to choke the tree branches. And I gotta come out there. Matter of fact, to do that manually, I went and caught me two of these. What are these, you might ask? The Reaper got to get his tools.
That's funny.
So I got another one of these too, right?
Machete?
Huh?
Why did you use the machete?
It needs to be sharpened. And the handle is kind of
okay.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I had to put that up and go with the
fair enough.
The Decaus specials. You know what I'm saying? had to go with this, right? But I will go and chop and make sure that it doesn't get too crazy along that fence and shit.
Right.
The problem is, like I said, that tree is going to inevitably grow up into those branches. It's going to cause another problem.
Yeah.
McKenna says it's also stupid because if it's a normal fruiting fig tree, they prefer full sun. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're native to the Mediterranean. Right. Right. So, like I said, I don't know why he grew that there, but that's going to be a problem. Final thing. During the course of these last 2 weeks, we had yet another issue with our dryer.
Ooh.
The little thing in there that lets it get hot stopped working. So the dryer wasn't working at all. It would turn on, but you ain't drying a motherfucking thing in there. So, told the landlord, because clearly in our lease, we're supposed to have that. Wash and dry. And what he could have done was just had it fixed. Had a new piece put in there. Instead, what he did, damn that, and this is uncharacteristic for him, by the way, damn that, he put a new one up in there.
Oh. Excuse me.
Okay. A new one. So he goes to Home Depot. Buys another one. They bring it over. Then we find out there's a problem. Because you see, in that back kitchen down here in the basement where it would be at, there's that aluminum piping that's supposed to have the hot air go outside. It's not up to code.
Oh.
So the people at Home Depot will not install them because it's not up to code. And they will not be responsible or be made responsible. What could happen? Let me tell you what could happen.
Fire.
That thing gets a hole into something, that hot air comes there, could cause all that to catch on fire. And we're toast, literally. Right? So they won't do it. But the problem is, though, code that they're going off of is not the same code that the city of Prince George's County College Park goes off of. Because why do I say that? We've had inspectors here every year we've been here. They come here. That's literally what they do in this area. They come inspect for fire. They've seen that. It does not fuck with their code at all. So because of that, the landlord doesn't feel like none of that needs to be fixed. So what I told my wife is, this will not be used at night. No one will come down here and try to dry clothes overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening because nobody's here to monitor shit.
Right.
People are asleep. So eventually, the landlord came over by himself. And here's the thing, too. As I said earlier, in a lot of ways, I present as younger.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still 56. This man's older than me. Smaller than me. Well, I'm kind of unusual height as far as the average humans.
Mm-hmm.
There's people way taller, but the average human is not 6'1".
Yeah.
He's even shorter than what you would expect for a grown-ass man. All right? So, and he's old. And his name is Moses. So, take that for whatever you want. Sometimes I mistakenly call him Abraham or Joshua.
Bruh.
I mean, Methuselah. It happens, right? Now, he has a son named Princeton. I sometimes call him Yale.
Yo, shut the fuck up.
It happens. I mean, the fuck. He comes over by himself. Now, here's what needs to happen. The old dryer needs to be put outside. Now, I did that myself.
Mm-hmm.
Took that son of a bitch outside. Well, my son helped me get it on the thing, and then I just wheeled it out. The old one, by the way, that needed the new one needed to go in there. Why wouldn't you bring somebody to help you? This is not my job to do. But at the same time, we still need the dryer. So I help him install it, move it, all of that other shit, and then take the old dryer and put that shit up to the curb, because then I had to call bulk pickup to schedule a pickup. Ryan said, you keep all your dad jokes in a dada base.
Bruh.
Because I did. So he called himself helping me move that up to the curb. But the truth is, this was more of a 90-10 deal. Meaning, I'm lifting 90% of the shit, right? He's doing 10. But he's an older man. He's smaller than me. That's why he should have brought some help. We get it up there. It's not up there a full day. I didn't even get a chance to call and make an appointment with bulk pickup to come and get it. Some guy walks down the street with his wife, and they walking their dogs. He sees the dryer up there and asks my mother-in-law, "Hey, y'all getting rid of this?" And I was like, "Yeah." Ethernet don't work anymore. Hey, you don't mind if I take it, D? She said no. Now, people say shit. You expect it to, they're going to do it. Maybe they don't do it, or they take their time about doing the shit. And I'm sitting to myself, thinking to myself, now, I got to wait for this motherfucker to decide to come and pick this up when I could just be calling bulk pickup, and they come and get that shit Friday and get it the fuck up out of here. Before that thought had cleared out of my head, I go out there to look at it. It's gone. Apparently, what this nigga did was got home, got his vehicle, his truck,
immediately
pulled up, wham, snatched that shit out of here. So I don't have that to do now. That's a good thing, because I didn't feel like, y'all got to understand what it's like trying to call the city of College Park to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
it's a fucking hassle. You get to run around. You talk to one person, they tell you one set of policy, the other one, McKenna said, dude flash speed ran to his house for that drive. He did. He really did. He really did. Trying to get the city of College Park to do what the fuck they supposed to do by calling them and all that shit is a pain in the ass. That's actually better than trying to do it online with them.
Right.
It's ass. It's ass. But that got done. That's up out of here. There are still some things that we probably need to take to the dump or whatever.
Right.
Because we have that yearly inspection is coming. It's coming. And one of the things you can't have is stuff blocking pathways to get out. And currently we have stuff blocking pathways to get out in the backyard. That's got to be handled. It's got to be taken care of. But overall, yeah, that was my 2 weeks right there.
Okay. I have a lot, so we're gonna try to get through this as quickly as we can. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, the death of Linkin Park. Now, so I went to the Linkin Park concert the Saturday before last.
Yes.
Yeah, the Saturday before last.
I knew you was gonna have a bad. I ain't gonna say bad time. I knew.
No, I didn't have a bad time.
I knew it was gonna be different for you.
It's a whole thing. They're one of my favorite bands from my childhood. I found out on the way to the concert, like literally in the car, that there were two controversies with the new lead singer.
Yes.
People were upset that the band replaced Chester Bennington. That's one. Among those people are Chester's son. Yeah, he died. I mean, one of the people, of course, was Chester's son. Now, I empathize.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know them people.
Right.
I don't know how Chester would have felt about this.
Right.
I don't know what relationships were like.
Right.
I don't know. Like I'm of the opinion that as long as the new person didn't disgrace what the old person did,
yeah, absolutely,
and they are accepted by the other members, who am I to simply say there shouldn't be a replacement?
But do you think that part of this is the Chadman Boswick effect?
Maybe. Yeah, absolutely it's possible. But I don't know. Maybe. But the difference here, right, is them people got bills to pay.
Facts.
And they already have an established brand that they put their life into. Like it's not just the.
It's a business too.
Yeah, it's not just the forward facing part of it. There's other stuff like okay, they're talented musicians. There are talented musicians all over the place that can't break through.
Facts.
They have already broken through.
Break through. Yeah, they managed to break through. That's a lot of money.
Just telling them, just start another thing. That's not the easiest.
Yo, let me explain something to y'all about the rebrand. Yeah, the rebrand is harder than initiating the initial brand.
Bruh.
Ask me how I know.
Because you're fighting all of the old shit.
Yes.
On top of trying to break them. Yeah, no, ain't no way. So
I think the reason people don't realize that is they become so numb.
Oh, that's funny. So I wasn't with that outrage. That part, I'm not with that.
Right.
I wasn't sure, but I wasn't surprised. Right? People don't like change, of course
not.
This actually came about as one of those seemingly universal things. I watch different creators who make all types of videos about music. There was a video about people who perform their songs in their live shows in a higher key than the record.
Right.
Now, for people who don't understand why that's odd, one of the main reasons is because oftentimes people are performing songs that they first made years, if not decades ago.
Right.
And they can no longer quite hit all of those notes as comfortably.
Absolutely.
Another reason could be they never actually sung the song in that key ever in their lives. But we're not going to go there. Anyway, Linkin Park was on the list. of bands who play their songs in higher keys than the recording.
Right.
And the reason was something so simple that I should have figured, but I never considered. It's because their lead vocalist is now a woman. That definitely changes things. So like
a little bit.
So like 2 weeks after that, Fab hits the group chat, asking if niggas want to go see Linkin Park. Of course I want to go see Linkin Park, especially after I just seen that video. Not only are they one of my favorite groups, and we had recently seen Fall Out Boy, another one of my favorite groups, so let's continue the nostalgia tour. But I was also curious to see how they tweaked some of these songs.
Right.
But then came the second controversy. This one's a bit more of an issue, also involving the new member. In 2013, the Church of Scientology claimed that she was a member. The thing about that is that she has never publicly spoken about her affiliation, but her previous band, which she co-founded, has several songs with lyrics that actually criticize Scientology. So, and also she's spoken on being in therapy in the past, which is actually against the cult's doctrine. So, okay.
Yeah, because it's a cult and they don't want you to ever.
Absolutely. So, okay, she does that one. That tracks. I get that. She does. Okay. Connected, but deserving of its own spotlight is that I'm speaking of in real time.
Of course.
I heard that she was one of the people who wrote a letter for Danny Masterson. Now,
yes,
I looked into that. I can't find any evidence of that.
Right.
What I did find evidence
What you find
is that she attended one of the days of his trial. She did comment on this publicly, though. She said that while she attended one court appearance in support of someone she considered a friend at the time, she realized shortly afterward that she should not have done so, and she had not spoken to him since. And in the statement, she doesn't mention his name. She says the person.
Right.
She says she does not condone abuse or violence against women and empathizes with victims of these crimes. She said this shit with her chest, unlike Ashton and Mila did when they got called out about this shit.
Yeah.
They ain't say shit.
Yeah.
This leaves me leaning toward withdrawing my support, but not being 100% sure because she said that shit with her chest.
Right.
To be clear, the thing that's stopping me, on top of her saying with her chest, is Mike Shinoda. He has consistently been on the right side of history publicly.
True.
Publicly. The group has absolutely been on their Rage Against the Machine shit on several songs since at least their third album.
These are facts.
And they have 8 albums.
These are
also,
facts.
He's shown himself, unrelated from the moral side of things, also he's shown himself to be a hip-hop head. Well, and by all accounts, that's genuine. And for those who don't know, he's a dope-ass MC.
Well, yeah, the thing is, their music has always been fused.
Always.
They like some of the production was done by. Yeah.
Absolutely. So on the way to the concert, I had not done the research. Also, we were literally on the way. So the way I looked at it is, if this shit is true, because again, at that point I didn't do research yet. Right. So I looked at it like, all right, this is the last hurrah. This is my last time that I'm going to be supporting this band. Right. The tickets are already paid for. We're already on our way.
Right.
The concert itself was great. I was particularly interested in how the crowd would adjust to the old songs. I would give the crowd about a 7. You know, I'm a music nerd. There is this thing that happens at concerts that I think can be explained by something I learned when I was a choir director. The wall of sound that comes from crowd participation tends to be decently close to being on tune.
Yeah.
It always used to amaze me. Next time that you're at a concert, if you've never just thought about this, next time you're at a concert, try to pay attention to it. It's to the point that you can clearly hear the people around you who are off key.
Right.
Because it's such a contrast to the wall of sound. It's actually called convergence. And it basically means that a given person will shift their pitch when they hear a dissonance with others who are singing.
Now, to be clear, folks, this does not mean your ass can sing.
No, it's subconscious. It's subconscious.
Y'all suck. And we're not doing that where y'all acting like, oh,
yeah, no. It's subconscious. People don't even do this on purpose.
They don't even do it on purpose, right?
No.
I just want to make it clear, you fucking suck at that shit, and you shouldn't sing in the shower. Yeah. You shouldn't sing in the car to the radio, especially if I'm in the seat. I don't need that shit from you.
Right.
Like,
again, that is subconscious, and some people might be like, "How is it subconscious?" Because I still hear people that are off. So to explain that person that's near you, who you hear still being off, they're either tone deaf or they're being a douchebag.
Yes.
It's either one of those two things. Of course, nothing's wrong with being tone deaf. That's who you are.
But
being a douchebag, being a douchebag, there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that.
But to be clear, you suck.
Facts.
You're not Usher. You're not a. You
Facts.
suck.
I mean, yeah, it's a thing. So it's at what made this interesting for me is, as I said earlier, most of their old songs are not in the key that everybody at the concert would have learned them in. So whether muscle memory or pure excitement, I was curious if that would affect this wall of sound.
Right.
Also, some of those songs are mostly Mike rapping. So I was curious if there would be a lesser effect on those songs since there was less singing in the song.
Right.
So the key changes were absolutely a factor. Now,
Right.
for the most part, the crowd adjusted decently well. I ain't gonna hold you. I was pleasantly surprised.
Don't listen. Just because he said that, don't take that to mean you don't suck at that shit. Y'all motherfuckers cannot sing.
Right. I was decently surprised. I was surprised. Okay. But there was like a song that. All right, so there was probably one song that I didn't like in the new key. I just didn't like how it sounded in that key. There were probably like 2 songs that the wall of sound never quite caught up to the new key. Mm-hmm. So it was.
Oh shit! Bad. Napalm is here. God damn it!
What up? There was like 2 songs that the wall sound never quite caught the new key, so that sounded weird for the whole song. And then there was a song or 2, which this is something I did not anticipate. Right. But again, it's because of how my brain works in pattern recognition. That's funny. Ryan said that's why I take the rap. That's hilarious. But there was one thing that happened with like 2 songs that I did not contemplate because of how my mind works and pattern recognition and everything. Mm-hmm. The crowd at large didn't even recognize the song until the words came. That happened like twice.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh.
That's a crazy key.
Because I'm like, yo, you're playing.
You must be in a crazy key.
It wasn't that crazy. Like some of it, so it wasn't uniform across the board. Okay. But some of the songs, like these 2 in particular, I feel like one of them, they raised it like one semitone. Right. And then like the other one, it was like maybe 2 semitones.
Right.
But that's not drastic. That's close enough to where like I said, the 2 songs that the wall of sound was slightly off, it was because it was by like a semitone or 2. Right. Because it's not that drastic of a change. But these 2 songs they just didn't catch. I'm sitting there like, oh shit, they about to play my shit. And like it's like almost silent. It's almost silent.
Oh, damn.
Because they didn't recognize the song that was playing.
Crazy.
And then once the words came in, you just heard like a roar, like slowly build. Because listen, now they recognize the song.
Here's the thing though. Like if you want an example of that outside of just music concerts, go to a wrestling event these days. Because the music has gotten so popular amongst the fans
that
when the wrestler comes out, the fans start doing certain parts, and they are on key. They are literally all. I have yet to see them be like off key.
That's real shit. That's real shit.
And I know that individually they.
Nigga, it's absolutely people. If you were sitting in the crowd, you would hear the off key.
My God.
So that didn't bring on the concert or anything. That was just an experience for me. I was really curious about it. Concert overall was awesome. I actually think Emily fits in well with the group.
Okay.
2 issues dealing with the set list, and these aren't their issues. I like being aware and I like being prepared. So every time I go to a concert, I look up the set list. Now, normally, the site that I go to is very, very close, like maybe at the most 3 songs. And that's just those 3 songs aren't exactly where they said it was.
Order. Okay.
Generally, it's like 3 songs are not in the same order that they are.
Knowing that niggas is doing that because you're on tour, so people have
absolutely.
Knowing that niggas is doing that, I'd be switching up every game.
I get it. So here's the thing. There's another thing about that too. But generally, every concert I've been to, the most that have been out of order or maybe weren't sung.
Right.
It's like 3 to that point. Nigga. Nah, not this time. Now, normally I think the reason and that is the thing that happens. So I think the reason that the site that I go to is usually so close is because they do aggregates and averages and all that other shit.
Right.
There's always at least one song that at least doesn't get played in the same place. Of course, there's always that. But that's because, as you just alluded to, these people are artists. They're not machines.
Right.
They still have to tell their story, and several factors that may change from show to show make up the fabric of that story.
Yeah. Well, look, to be clear, some motherfuckers depend on the order of the song.
Absolutely.
To remember their shit.
That's
how they memorize it.
Also, some of them order it that way for rest purposes, for vocal rest purposes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That part there. And also, sometimes depending on how elaborate their set pieces are and what they plan on doing is up there, it's a reason why those songs are in that on that point of the set list.
Absolutely.
Because it goes along with their overall stage performance.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what that artist is doing. But for me, I remembered my songs. One of the things that helped me remember my songs was where they were positioned on the set.
That makes sense. That's probably how I would be if I ever was in that position too. But this is the first time that one of these concerts was so far away from the set list. There was like maybe a 50% match, maybe.
The problem probably was they had been doing it the same way so long, they grew so numb.
Shut up. I also think that might be true though, because since I've been doing that, this is the latest in a tour that I've seen the show.
Right.
So there actually might have been a part of that. We've been doing this shit for so long.
Nate Pop said, the fact that U2 does research before concert instead of just watching.
I can't. Yeah, I can't. Now, unfortunately, one of the songs that got cut was one of my favorite songs from them called Leave Out All the Rest. There were other songs that I wanted them to do, but
they didn't leave out all the rest. They left that one out.
There were other songs I wanted them to do, but they weren't on the set list. So there wasn't disappointment there because they're not on the set list. I don't expect them to do these things.
Right.
Mike has these 2 other groups that he's done music with that I know of. One is Fort Minor, which was a side project group of his. And the other was Executioners, which is actually a group of turntablists / DJs. Me and Fab wanted them to do an Executioner song called "It's Going Down."
I remember that.
But we figured that they wouldn't do any non-Linkin Park songs.
Right.
Boy, were we wrong. They did two Fort Minor songs. Where'd You Go and Remember the Name. And Mike did a verse I've never heard for the second one. So that was dope because that's how he introduced it. It was like during like the first intermission, and then he came out and he got in the crowd. He talked to the crowd for a little bit, and then he was like, "All right, so can I give y'all a verse that y'all probably haven't heard before?" And everybody was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Yeah." So this came from, I think it was intended to be a remix, but it just didn't come out for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So he starts rapping the verse, and of course, they aren't playing the music. They aren't playing that music to that song. So at the end of that verse, he goes straight into the chorus. Everybody erupts. Niggas just start wilding out. So that was dope. We never did get that other song. So we got the one song that we was looking for. We never got the other one. There was one thing that got on my nerves about the goddamn concert. There was a pair of pretentious douchebags behind me. I do not know if the one guy went to look up the set list on a different site than I did, or if he went to another show on the tour.
Right.
But he was doing that thing. See, I look up the set list, right? But I don't spoil it for my friends. And I also don't act like I know for sure what's about to happen in the goddamn show. No, man. This motherfucker. Like I said, I don't know if he went to look up the set list on a different site than the site that I use, or if he went to another show during the tour or whatever the case. But he was doing the thing where he was smugly announcing what was about to happen. The problem with that was, this was one thing I appreciate about the set list being switched up, is that he was so fucking wrong. So fucking often.
Like those type of douche nozzles,
nigga,
when they're wrong because they've been so self-assured this entire time, and they have this little smug little energy coming off them, and when they begin to say something like, "Oh, by the way," and then it's not that,
nigga.
It's
and
like
and it wasn't just the set list. He was announcing like times for things.
I hate him already.
Incorrectly announcing how long the opener would be. Right.
So let me ask you this question, SBJ.
Go ahead.
If this is you, and the first time you were loud and wrong about that shit, wouldn't you stop?
I would have never said another word. I would have never said another word about what was supposed to happen. Once I came out with the chest puffed out, like, oh yeah, they're about. Yo, he literally said to his homeboy, the opener was still doing their thing, and he literally said to his homeboy, "All right, you might want to go to the bathroom right now because in 3 minutes." No, he literally said, "You might want to go to the bathroom right now because in 3 minutes, Linkin Park is about to show up."
Because I know shit.
That did not happen.
I'm saying he was a Tony Stark, died outside of the theater.
Like, and then like one of their intermissions, he was like, "All right, yeah, this is probably a good time to go to get a hot dog or something because they're about to be back in like 2 minutes."
Yeah, I know shit. I was on the phone with the singers the other day and management, and they was telling about how they structure shit. So you might want
to. And then several times just incorrectly announcing what song was about to be next. Like, they're about to do this.
Up,
they're about to do this. And then it was a completely different song from a completely different album.
Some point, you shut the fuck. Bro, listen, what have we said on this show? We said on this show that the option to shut the fuck up is always available. It's
always
right there. It's within reach. Right?
So, yeah, that was annoying, but everything else about the experience was dope. But now I'm a bit confused. I'm still slightly on the fence on if they will get my support moving forward. Luckily, I have should have a while because this tour was for their last album. So it should be a little while before they put out the next album.
True.
And I'll have time to like sit with that shit and really think about it. So the next thing that happened was the very next day. Friend of the pod and heard it through the grapevine, co-host Gigi hosted a dinner. The guest list was very simple. It was engaged couples who had asked her to be their matron of honor, plus one other couple who has years in as far as being married goes.
Right.
It was her showing her appreciation for us choosing her. It was amazing. Her and her twin are chefs, and her twin catered the dinner. It was just all around dope. Good food, good convo, good vibes, mostly good company.
Right.
It's a little difficult to talk about because everything isn't content, but I'm really just talking about my experience. I have to give some backstory. One of the couples is supposed to get married next year. I feel like the bride-to-be has a bit of a lack of awareness and a bit of a lack of consideration for other people, but that's neither here nor there. That's neither here. That's neither here. It's neither here nor there. It's neither here nor there.
Calm down.
No,
relax.
It's neither here nor there.
Everybody relax.
This isn't defamation or anything. I'm just giving my opinion on what I've observed. That's it.
I need everybody to relax.
That's it. A little bit.
Somebody might lose their job.
So Chrissy found out that they were approaching engagement around the same time that we realized that we were going to be doing what we were going to be doing. Our original plan was to have a destination wedding somewhere likely in the Caribbean. In that event, we would have had a smaller wedding party and a much smaller guest list for the actual wedding. But the reception was going to be here. What ended up changing that was we decided to move the wedding up a year. Also, her father isn't a fan of flying. Also, her mother was dealing with / coming out of some health issues. It was not worth the risk of them not being there.
Right.
So that's how we landed on the plans that we have now. So this other couple had planned to get married next year, and the original plan was that they were going to get married in the New England area, and then there was an optional cruise that was going to be their honeymoon. Mm-hmm. That was perfectly fine with me. I mean, I wasn't going to cruise, but the wedding plan was more. Yeah, no, I don't plan
cruises now.
No, I don't plan on doing any more cruises.
You cruising for a bruiser?
Yeah, no, I don't plan on it. But the wedding plan was absolutely more than doable. Like, okay. So at some point, this changed. Well, Chrissy was a part of the wedding. Was asked to be a part of the wedding party. So she kind of had to be there. So at some point, this changed to the wedding being a whole week in Hawaii. Now, that's where the lack of awareness and consideration kick in. So at least 4 of the people who are supposed to be in this wedding party are part of the friend group. The group was already planning to go to Japan in November of that year. They have been in various stages of planning that for years. So while it was still a simple drive up the coast and an optional
Oh, no. You got to get on a plane to go to Japan. You can't just drive up the coast. You meant my fault.
Shut up. So while it was still a simple drive up the coast and an optional cruise, she asked everybody to be a part of it. Also knowing about the Japan plans, she asked people if her having her wedding during that time would interfere with the Japan plans. Mm-hmm. At that time, the answer was no, it won't. It's just a simple drive up the coast.
Right.
But now you've changed literally everything about the thing you asked people about. Awareness and consideration would have led you to realize that you need to ask those questions again. Instead, she just sprung the plan change on everybody. Now, as you can imagine, I'm not going to that version of this wedding for several reasons in no particular order. The natives of Hawaii don't want us there. I'm not going to go too far into that right now. We've talked about that on the show before.
Can we just gloss over the fact that you just said, let's not gloss over the fact that you said that the natives don't want you there. Yeah. I'm glad you said it that way, because some of you have such a propagandist outlook on history of places and geographic locations. Yeah. And the people who are actually natives there. Some of you are even foolishly calling the people that came over here the other week Africans. Yeah. They're not. They don't even call themselves that. They call themselves Afrikaners to specifically delineate themselves from Africans there. So when you say natives, you're not native just because you're born there. That's one type of definition of native stuff. That's not you're talking about citizenship. Yeah. He's not talking about that. He's talking about the people whose island it is.
That part. And until I see overwhelming evidence that this has changed,
Right.
I won't be stepping foot on any of those islands.
I feel you.
Given the nature of the event, also
it's also expensive as well.
Well, hold on. Don't bury the lead. Also, given the nature of the event, you're effectively taking one of my allotted vacations for the year and holding it hostage.
Yeah.
Also, as you just alluded to, Hawaii is expensive as fuck. They are talking about this whole thing being a week-long thing. The flight is minimum $550 round trip per person. I don't know if this week is a work week or a calendar week, like if it's 5 days or 7 days.
Right.
But I'll be charitable and call it a work week. I'll say it's 5 days. I can't even get the accurate estimates on an Airbnb because I don't know which island. But it would likely be over $1,000 if we are left to book our own place. And I think there was a point in time where she had a place in mind, and that would have been somewhere around $1,500 per person. Now, next, I got other stuff to work on / worry about financially. Currently, we're still planning our wedding and our honeymoon, and Chrissy just went into business for herself.
Yeah.
It's a lot of shit going on here. Then, on top of all that, call me petty. Absolutely
Petty
call
Murphy.
me petty for this. But I didn't get to have my destination wedding.
Yo, listen. I'm not even gonna call that petty.
Nigga.
Listen, hold up. What we not gonna do, right? Petty. What we not gonna do is all of a sudden I gotta go and hold up my vacation stuff, blah blah blah, and then I don't even get a chance to get my money.
Now, I've never been the type to have a dream wedding, but if I had anything close to it, it would have been a destination wedding.
Yeah,
100%. So those are my reasons. Now, some of these reasons, Chrissy is in lockstep with me on.
Yeah. Some of them just think you're an ass.
Well, but even without that, I don't think I could convince her to go without me if I tried.
No.
But back to the dinner party. So the night's going well. We're all having
Was this a dinner for scoundrels?
Shut up. That's hilarious. We're all having a good time. The night is winding down. Somebody says to the bride to be in question, so since we're all here, do you want me to go to this wedding? Nigga.
It has begun.
Let's stop right there. They definitely get points for being direct.
Yes.
But nigga, there is still mixed company right now.
Yeah.
So I jumped in to try to help table this conversation. Woo. But it was at that moment.
I can see that too. Like I literally in my head can see you doing that shit.
I'm like, yo, hold up, wait. What are you doing? Chill out. But it was at that moment that I realized it was going to be a long night. So, not long after that, the people that, as far as I know, had nothing to do with that conversation, they ended up leaving. And then everything got down to the nitty gritty.
Of course it did.
Now, I shut the fuck up.
Well,
because that's always an option.
Here's the thing. You are, for the most part, one of the people that helped coin the phrase, there's always an option.
I shut the fuck up. Because my decision was clear already. I didn't have a dog in that fight. So if they decided to go along with that version of the wedding, I wasn't going to be there.
Right.
Very simple.
Right.
If they did something simpler, I'm in there. Without question. Now, how that conversation went isn't important to the story. But it does seem like they might be considering getting away from that whole Hawaii aspect of things. So that's great. Because I know Chrissy wants to be at the wedding. She's a part of the wedding. Also, dude is a great dude. And I'd love to be there to support him.
Well, let me ask you this about all of that. So you probably don't have any information on this. But if they planned on doing the wedding in Hawaii. So the cost, like not just the fact that it's going to cost y'all a grip to get down there and a grip to stay down there. I can only imagine what the wedding provisions would have been down there.
I will not go into super detail. Trust and believe that I'm being fair. It was, what's a good word that I can use? It was never going to work.
Yeah.
I'll say that. It was now. For all I know, heart might be set. That's cool. Let me know how it went.
Right. I mean, listen, I'm just gonna put this out there.
It's not really feasible.
Panama got some nice beaches, and it's a relatively cheap trip.
Nigga.
Like just this.
That part. So, like I said, that conversation comes to the conclusion that that was available for it to come to in that moment.
Right.
And now we have the wind down from the wind down. So side note, before we get to this next part, again, shout out to the chef because she went out of her way to make a separate menu for this particular groom to be. He had just had weight loss surgery, so he couldn't do salads.
Oh, yeah.
So him being such a good sport about the surgery and everything led to some hilarious moments throughout the night. He's a funny guy. Now, anyway, to the final conversation. We were chilling. They were talking. The topic switched to something else. The Hawaii couple is how I'm referring to them. Is pretty much leading the conversation. It's all laughs, all good times,
all guffaws.
Then out of nowhere, he alludes to something that she told him earlier in the relationship. The mood of her seemed to noticeably change to me. Just me being an observer.
On some Taz shit. The mood is about.
Hey, listen. Her mood changed to me. I could tell something was off, but of course, I couldn't tell what it was.
You was minding your business.
I was minding I didn't know if this was something that they weren't supposed to talk about in public. I didn't know if it was something that was a sore spot for her. I didn't know what it was. I just noticed that her mood changed. Well, this thing caught the ears of 3 people who were in the room with us. Now, out of instinct, one of them outright says, "That's not true." Let's stop right there. I'm going to defend them before I go in on them. I'm actually on their side. They were the aggrieved in this situation. But the humor lies more with dragging them versus why they were right. So I'm going to get why they were right out the way. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not recommend that you lie to important people in your life. I don't recommend it. However, in the event that you choose to do so, it absolutely behooves you to let people close to you know that you have lied.
Yeah.
It behooves you.
Yo, so if I'm picking up what you putting down, this is awkward.
Oh, nigga.
This is awkward.
Now I can't have your back on something that
I don't know nothing about I don't know the lore.
I don't know the lore.
Imagine me and Napalm and SBJ doing a presentation at a Comic-Con. And I then give the floor to Napalm and he don't know all of the aspects of the lore.
Imagine he's sitting in the Majestic Comics offices and Tim has this IP that he came up with and he just says to me, "Yo, SBJ, I need you to write a mini art on Estefan and Gloria." I don't know the lore. How am I supposed to do that?
What the fuck?
I don't know the lore. All right, bet. So I think everybody's clear on that, right? So, but also, on the flip side of that, help me. Please.
Nigga. Please.
After the first one said that it wasn't true, old girl kept lying. That was her opportunity to come clean. Say she misspoke, hopefully move along. She did not take that route. These niggas kept going.
Oh, no.
I told them afterwards that I would never rob a bank with them. In order to not say what the actual conversation is, in order to not say what the actual conversation is,
Chrissy sound
in order to not say what the actual conversation is, because that's not important for the story, We're going to use a bank robbery as the analogy.
Okay.
So she's still denying it. Somebody yells out, I was working at the MNT when you did it. You told me to make sure I called out that day. She still denies it. Somebody else yells, you was dead broke and you needed the money for a bill that was due the next day and you ended up paying that bill on time. She still denies it. Somebody else yells out, you had the blue ink that they put in the money all over your hands.
First of all, I hate these motherfuckers, yo. They are literally like interrogating her like she's on a stand.
Yo, they said you had the blue ink that they put in the money all over your hands when you made it to my house. She still denies it.
Yo,
somebody yells,
this
I'm
looking. Me when my mom almost got me jammed up. I just beat the charge in court. The arresting officer is out there talking to us, and my mom is bringing up facts that were not put into the case. And that's how I managed to get the fuck right. This was not discovery. like I was like, Mom, Ixnay on the
nigga. Yo, she still denies it. Somebody else yells, yo, I'm looking at your case search right now. You have this robbery charge. He finally chimes in. Okay, so if you didn't rob the bank, who did you rob?
Oh.
She starts stuttering and mumbling, talking about I don't remember who I robbed. This whole time, this entire time, I'm trying to get them to shut up. Because I can see that this isn't going. She's not going to take responsibility in this moment.
Yeah. And the more y'all do that, the more this make her look crazy.
And they just keep helping her make it worse. But once we got here to this point, I actively, physically started to wrap everything up. I got up. I said, Chrissy, get your stuff. I thanked the host and the chef for the lovely evening.
Yo,
I wish the couple in question Godspeed and good luck. Then we were out. I'm not exaggerating.
Okay. So I'm gonna tell y'all.
No.
And I'm gonna tell y'all about this nigga here. This who you want when the house on fire and shit starting and people getting all jammed up in either their personal shit, trying to grab their shit out of drawers. This the nigga you want right here because he's gonna pull you. He remind me. I had a friend named Reds that I used to work at Baltimore Spice Company. This is his nigga. He's Reds. Reds pulled me up out of a room when he saw some shit was not going, like these people were not on our side. He pulled me out before I even recognized it. He gave me a 5 and didn't. I was sitting down and he didn't let go and he pulled me out the chair. The room, yo. That's this nigga. That's this nigga right here.
Because in my head, I'm like, yo, you're not even my favorite person, but you're in danger right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to mitigate this as much as I can.
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't do that. All right, we getting out of here. We don't need to be a part of the storm.
No.
We getting out of here.
No.
And again, I'm going to go over this again because I want to reiterate. This is not an exaggeration. On the show, there are absolutely times, often, where I'll exaggerate a situation for comic effect. No, that's not what happened. Literally, I stood up. The hosts, both hosts, matter of fact, one host was right here, one host was right here, and the chef was in the middle of them. I said to the host, thank you for the lovely evening.
This was a lovely evening.
To the chef. This was absolutely amazing. You did your thing. Chrissy was right here. I said, hey, get your stuff. We're leaving. By the time she stood up, my hand is physically on her back, guiding her out of the house. So we had to walk past the bride-to-be and the groom-to-be. I didn't say anything to her, but to him, I said, Godspeed. No, I'm sorry. I made sure I spoke to him first. I did not say anything to her. I spoke to him first. To him, I said, Godspeed. To her, I said, good luck. To her, I said, good luck. And we left out of the building.
No. We got
out of Dodge.
No.
We got out of Dodge. We was out of there.
And as you left, you employed Chrissy don't look back,
nigga.
Because the pillow assault shit is coming.
Facts.
Like,
no. So we got a dodge. Now, I'm from the school of call me out on my bullshit, right? But privately.
Yeah.
If I say something about you that you don't like in public, that's an exception.
That's different.
That's an exception. That's absolutely an exception.
Yo,
Otherwise, it can wait till later.
Palm said, Alexa, play We Gonna Make It.
If it's something other than if it's anything other than you saying something, if it's anything other than me saying something about you that you don't like, let that shit wait. We ain't gotta do this in public. If I agree with you, cool. And that's why I am actually on their side, because she basically gaslit the fuck out of them.
Yeah.
By not making them aware, she gaslit them because they didn't know that it was a lie. They thought that like they needed to help reinforce her memory. So she's continuing to double down, and they're like, no.
They wasn't on the same, like their strategies were vastly apart. So they misunderstood
absolutely
what the mission was. But she didn't. She didn't give them the proper intel.
If I was in their shoes and I was paying attention, I would have either shut up early or tried to change the topic and then talk to her later. But the problem here was, like I said, they felt like she was gaslighting them. And I can't say that I disagree. You can't put your friends in that kind of position.
Also, I got to say, there are times where it doesn't even take all that for somebody to know you lying. Because the moment you say that, body language a lot of times and facial micro expressions can say everything. Because when I look at the person you're saying this to and they get some little, they lying. Even if they catch themselves to try to back your play, right? I already caught the micro expression. I already caught it.
That part. Like I said, I saw that something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was at the time.
Yeah. But you knew it was.
I knew something.
This who you want. Montrez, this is who you want. This the guy that's gonna pull you out of the burning fire. This the guy that's gonna say, look, the people of this town, they ain't right. They just tried to have sex with angels. We gotta get the we gotta get the fuck out of here.
And so that's the problem, right? So at any point, she had the power of the conversation. At any point, she could have shut the conversation down, or she could have just admitted to her misspeaking. She ain't even had to call it a lie. In that moment, she could have been like, "Oh shit, my bad, babe, I misspoke." But no, she had to dig her heels in. All right, we out of here.
This is. I would not have wanted to be still there. Like I would have. I'm ready to leave now. How long? Right. Hold up. How long? So y'all was there enough for dinner?
Oh no, it was like midnight at this point. We got there like 7, I think.
Yeah,
so it was a whole event.
It's past my bedtime.
Oh, yeah, I had to work in the morning too.
I got about. It's been Godspeed.
Yeah,
good luck to you.
Hey,
that's what he did.
That's exactly what I no, verbatim.
Good luck to you.
Verbatim. That's exactly what happened. Like, nigga, because we not. But anyway, yeah. So
Krista said she had more to say.
Hey, listen. I understand that, but here's the other part about it, right? It was not a completely altruistic action from me.
No.
Also, a thing that I don't like. I don't like the awkwardness of people arguing about personal stuff in front of me.
Me too. I don't like it.
I don't like it. And it felt like that's the only logical conclusion that there was.
No, I'm with you. It's awkward. I don't know what the fuck to say. I can't even joke troll my way through. I can't.
Right. So yeah, no, we gotta get out of here. All right, next. Cinco. So that was, again, we're talking about consecutive days here. The concert was Saturday.
Ryan, that's what it sounded like, Ryan. It sounded like it was a build-up.
That part, Paul. Yeah. Paul said, plus I don't be witness to an assault. Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I don't want to see it. So this is consecutive days. Saturday, the concert, that was the last time we had a show. That Friday, Marcus came over to help with the dress and all that other type stuff and blah, blah, blah. We talked about that. Saturday was the concert. We ain't get until late. This is Sunday. We ain't get until late. Monday was Cinco de Mayo. Now, I thought about it sometime on Saturday briefly, just wondering why traffic was what it was.
Do you have to drink to really appreciate Cinco de Mayo? I've never appreciated
There's two questions.
Okay.
To actually celebrate Cinco de Mayo, the answer is no.
Okay.
To appreciate Cinco de Mayo without the celebratory link to it, probably.
Okay. Because that might be why I never really.
I hated this fucking take, but I didn't respond to anybody who said it because, whatever. People talking about after what they did in November, y'all still celebrating Cinco de Mayo. Nobody is fucking celebrating Cinco de Mayo. Yeah. We are using this as an excuse to go out and have fun and drink.
That's old.
It's just like the argument about Independence Day. We're not fucking celebrating the independence. No, it's an excuse for us to be off work, have a cookout, be with our family and friends. Right. This is not the same thing. But anyway, I digress. Now, I thought about it sometime on Saturday because of how traffic was, but during the weekend is generally when you would do something if you were going to. I just thought it was one of those years that we wasn't going to do nothing for Cinco de Mayo. That's what I thought. So Monday comes.
I never do anything.
And at like 2 p.m., Marcus hits the group asking if we're drinking that night. Fab responds first and says he's going to take a nap first and he's down. He loves the way Marcus thinks. Chrissy saw it, but of course, Chrissy had the podcast. It was Monday. My homegirl was at a wedding, and she said that she would see how she felt after the wedding. Cool. So I threw in the chat, just to be clear with niggas, I'm not leaving my house, but I do have a fully stocked bar.
I know that.
So if niggas want to come over here, that's cool, but I'm not leaving.
I'm in for the evening, niggas.
Yeah, I'm not leaving my house. So that materialized into the plan being coming over the house. Okay, cool. Now, I didn't really hear much back after that for a while, and by the time Chrissy left the house, I still wasn't completely sure if niggas was coming or not. Right. Didn't matter to me because I wasn't leaving. I ain't had nothing to get ready for. So she told me have fun. At that point, I still had no idea if anybody's coming. A little bit later, Marcus asked what time everybody was coming to my house. Nobody answered. And about 8:40, Marcus said he was on his way. Shortly after that, our homegirl was like, yo, I just got to my house. Should I still come? Because she lives like 30 minutes away from me. Right. She was like, I just got to my house. Should I still come? I said, come on. It's fine with me. This was kind of unprecedented, particularly now. So I don't tend to do things late on Monday nights. No. If I'm shenanigans on a work night, it's usually going to be Thursday. It's usually going to be Thursday night, as I feel I can be okay with lack of sleep for just the last day of the work week. That's okay. I can usually get through that, especially this time since that dinner party had us out the house until about midnight.
The dinner with scoundrels.
Our homegirl. Okay, another reason this was unprecedented for this current time is our homegirl, when Trump got in office, had to go back into the office. She couldn't work from home anymore. So she has to be up at like 4 o'clock in the morning in order to get to work on time. So she generally tries to be in bed on Sundays by like 7:30. It was already almost 9 o'clock, and she like, should I still come? Okay. If you choose to come out, you can come out.
You an adult. I ain't
got no problem. You an adult. And then Marcus is a hooligan, so he's always down for the shenanigans. So there was a bottle of Patron that Fed brought over when we had the wedding party game night. I figured it was only appropriate that we finished that. So they got pretty drunk. Fab never ended up making it. But Marcus and our homegirl, they got pretty drunk because I sped the situation up because I know we didn't have as much time as we normally did.
Right.
Because it was a work night. So I figured it was only appropriate to finish that particular bottle. Of course, I got them to do it, like I said, early and made sure they had food and water in their system and all that other stuff. Chrissy stayed over Gina's house a little bit longer. than normal. That caused them to stay here longer than I expected because they wanted to make sure they saw Chrissy before they left. So I didn't get to bed until like 1:30 or so.
Jeez.
Nigga.
I mean, I'm saying that,
exhausted,
but I don't usually go to bed till like 1.
Sure. But again, this was after Friday being up late, Saturday being up late, Sunday being up late.
Well,
and now Sunday being up late, having to go to work, Monday being up late until 1:30, having to go to work the next day.
It's ass.
I was exhausted. I made it there. I did what I was supposed to. I was exhausted. Later on in the week, I informed Marcus. Because we was talking about something else. I informed Marcus that Chrissy still had a headache from him screaming in her ear. And his response was, Chrissy was there?
Wow.
Nigga, there's a problem there that you need to work on.
Yeah.
You need to work on.
You're having blackouts.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an issue. All right, next thing. So, as this week in review is already displayed, a side effect of being with my particular significant other is that I am always fucking busy because she has 75 people in her life who she has some level of friendship with. That means I now have 75 additional people.
So can I just say before you continue, I want to shout out my wife for kind of being like me, where you have a big list of friends, people you love and you care about, but you don't be around them, and it's the norm that you're not around most of the time and shit. I just want to shout my wife out for that. So we not having to drag me all over the place. I don't be dragging her.
Here's the thing. So that means I now have 75 additional people who I have to.
It does. That's exactly
the thing about that is it's not feasible to be around all. The only reason it's an issue is because it's not feasible to be around all of them at the same time always.
And then knock it out. Like knock it out.
Right. It's not a thing. Right. You can't really do that. But we almost got there with this one. So there were like 42 people at my house.
My God. Yo, nigga, no. Listen, I'm not mid to late teens, early 20s or more. I reserve things with that amount of people. We had a restaurant. We going to an amusement park.
Right.
We're doing it. I'm not. Look, this nigga wedding in October.
Right.
Other than that,
all right. To be clear, it wasn't me or Chrissy's fault.
Listen,
I know that sounds crazy. I'm explaining. I know it sounds crazy. So I want to get the complaints out the way first, right? So let's talk about the planning. To be clear, it's not about the person who was planning it. It's about every single person who was involved in the planning, even me and Chrissy, right? So we'll go through that process now with the power of hindsight. So one of the twins hit me a few months ago telling me she wants to do a Mother's Day cookout for Chrissy with all her godkids. It's for Chrissy and the kids? Say less. So she asked about our availability for May 3rd. I looked at the calendar and I asked Chrissy. The date seemed to be free. I confirmed that with the twin. She said they would bring tables and chairs and food. I said, cool. At that point, we're starting off strong. The planning gets a 10 out of 10 at that point. So I told Chrissy.
I love living vicariously through like that shit. I don't.
So I told Chrissy to block that entire day off and not to plan anything for us. Chrissy hates surprises. So I knew there would be a bunch of questions, but I'm not new to that shit. I just mind your business my way out of everything. And that conversation ended with her agreeing to block the day off. We're still at a 10 out of 10. A little while passes, and I remember that we actually already had plans for that day. That was the day of the concert. I hit the twin up and told her, like, hey, yo, I messed up. We already got something for that day. It's the concert. That's 2 points off because me and Chrissy both dropped the ball on that one. So we had 8 out of 10. We go back and forth, and I find out that for sure we didn't have anything planned for the 10th. The 11th was Mother's Day, and we were trying to figure out how to get both of our sets of parents out to eat, but my mother worked that weekend. That's how we knew that the 10th would be free because my mother couldn't make it. So we decided on the 11th. I told the twin, 10th. She said, that sounds good, but let me go check with everybody. She got back to me the next day. We're all good. Boom. All right, we had a 9 out of 10 because that was a good save. There's more to this one, but we'll get back to it in a bit. Chrissy,
Oh, damn. Father's Day coming up soon. Never mind. Go ahead.
Chrissy even booked reservations at a restaurant for the 11th for the Mother's Day thing.
Mm-hmm.
For us to take her parents out, because again, my mother had to work. Back. Perfect. Twin hits me up on the 3rd to tell me that she needed me to get Chrissy out of the house for about an hour at like 12 or so that they can set everything up. I asked her if Dion was involved with the setup. 2 simple reasons. One, Dion's children. Well, one of Dion's children is one of Chrissy's godchildren.
Right.
And because Dion has access to the house. The twin tells me, yes, Dion is involved with the setup. But this is when things started to get suspicious to me. Right? Mm-hmm. So I texted Dion later that night after we got in from the concert because I wanted to make sure that she was fully aware that she was needed early because she'd be a little late to things sometimes. But she also usually has at least 3 other people to account for to get ready.
Right.
So that's why she'd be late when she'd be late. So this is how that conversation went. I said, yo, what do you know about Saturday? Her response was, huh? She sent a second message. Today? Let's stop right there. What the fuck you mean, huh? Mind you, we're texting. Why would you reply to my simple question that way?
If you can, huh? You can hit.
Back to the convo. I said, the 10th. She says, what you mean?
Oh.
I respond back, stop playing. She stops responding. She responds back at like 10 a.m. the next day. Talking about she fell asleep. Now, the thing I gave her bail on is it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. It's possible that she fell asleep. Yeah, absolutely. But what was the problem here? The twin didn't tell people that I had a role in planning.
Oh.
And she told me that this was just a thing for Chrissy. So now I got to take off 3 points for that because it caused, or at least enabled, several other hiccups. So now we have a 6 out of 10. So we're in the home stretch now. I want to say it was Tuesday. We were sitting on the couch. Chrissy's phone rang. She answers it and goes upstairs. I was watching something on TV. She didn't want to interrupt me. When she finishes, she comes back down. She tells me that her and her dad were hashing out Mother's Day's plans. I'm like, yo, I thought we already had it locked in. Well, apparently, after Chrissy booked the place that I referenced earlier, her parents revealed that they wanted to do a buffet-style brunch. Cool. But this became an issue because now we're so much closer to Mother's Day. And now all the places that are doing that thing on Sunday are basically filled up.
Rule of thumb for everybody out there. Don't be planning on Mother's Day or the day before or the day, because I'm telling you now.
Yeah, that's the thing. But to be fair, she had the plan. It's just that they wanted to do something different. So a little bit later, she gets on the phone with her mother. By now, the thing that I was watching was over, so she didn't go upstairs. She's still on the couch with me. Thank God that was the case, because if I didn't hear this convo, there would have been an issue. So she was basically recapping the conversation that she had with her dad to her mom. They had made a reservation for brunch on the 10th. So now I went into panic mode because I hear the date of the 10th. As I saw it, I only had 2 choices. I could act like I was upset that she didn't do something I asked her to do, or I could spill the beans. Of course, I committed to the surprise because I enjoy genuine reaction. So I committed to the surprise. I acted like I was upset. I'm fussing at her. Like, what are you doing? I told you to block off the whole day. She's like, it's not my fault. Such. I said, no. I told you whole day. Whole day means whole day.
You're so ass.
Can we do this? Can we do this thing after we come from brunch? No, doesn't work that way. I need you to block off the whole day. The entire time we're going back and forth about her not listening, and I told her to block off the whole day, and her still trying to make everything work. Her mother is sitting on the phone, and she's dead silent. That was another thing that was suspicious to me. Why are you dead silent? Why aren't you saying anything? Chrissy's mother is a lot like my mother. She takes in all of Chrissy's friends. She also treats Chrissy's godchildren as if they are her grandchildren. It did not make any sense that she would not be invited, especially given that she lives like 15 minutes away from us. But she didn't say a word this entire time. And I couldn't request backup from her. And I wasn't going to text her later because I didn't want it to be like
no backup for you, sir.
Right. I didn't want it to be like the Dion conversation. So that's -2 situation, because even though I played it up in the moment, Chrissy had one job, and it was not to plan anything for one specific day. So now we're at a 4 out of 10. Next, the day before the event, the twin is checking in with me for final plans. She informs me that she needs us out of the house by 11 instead of 12. That part's no biggie. I told Chrissy we had to leave at 11 instead of 12. She wasn't happy about it. There had been a lot going on, but we adjusted. We got up the day of, did some light cleaning in the house, and we left. She had kept asking me questions, of course, because she can't help herself. One of the questions was about what she was supposed to wear. I told her that after we get back in the house, there will be plenty of time for her to decide what to wear. It is very difficult.
Who is she, Stephanie Mills, with all the goddamn outfit changes?
There ain't no bunch of outfits. There's one, nigga. It's very difficult, but I like the challenge of surprising her and lying as little as possible. Like, I like that challenge. So that was a perfect setup, because like, no, I didn't lie. That's absolutely the case. Once we get back, you can go ahead and decide what you want to wear for the day. No problem. So,
yeah, but knowing you, it may not directly be a lie, but it's definitely a misrepresentation of the truth.
It's a surprise. So, for a specific reason that we won't get into on here, she needed to know exactly how long we would be out of the house. I told her about an hour. She knew that we were leaving the house. She knew what we were leaving the house to do, because it wasn't necessary for the surprise. So I told her what we were going to do. A little bit before we left the house, I'm getting messages from the twin. I'm getting messages from Dion. I can't remember which one. One of them told me to take Chrissy's phone. As we were leaving the complex, I told her to give me the phone. Of course, that we went back and forth about that.
Of course you did.
But by that time, she had already seen that Dion turned her location off. So now she's getting suspicious. Now, I told her that I didn't know exactly why I was told to take the phone, and that I was simply following directions. That was true. I didn't lie about it. That was absolutely 100% true. I wasn't informed as to why I was supposed to take her phone. I had a good idea why.
Right.
And one of them was the location thing, but one of them was also her, the engagement was almost ruined because one of the girls posted something on social media.
Right.
And Chrissy saw that. So those were my ideas as to why they didn't want her to have her phone. But again, nobody told me specifically. So, hey, nobody told me why. They just told me to take your phone. So she put her phone down. We out. During this conversation is when I realized what was actually, well, not this, but during our conversation while we were out is when I realized what was going on. So when I told Chrissy that I was just following instructions and I didn't have any details, she said, "Oh, that sounds like it might be an engagement party." Now, at that point, given all of the fucking oddities that had popped up before, I was like, "Yep, that's it." But I couldn't say that to Chrissy.
Right.
So, of course, I denied it and played it off to Chrissy, because I still wanted her to get as much of a surprise factor as possible. So I'm like, that don't make no sense. Why would they do that? Like, you told them. You told them you don't want one. Why would they, like, and it's so close to the wedding. Like, we've been engaged for almost half a year.
Yo.
Actually, more than half a year. We've been engaged for half a year. Like, that don't make no sense. But in my head, I was like,
that's funny.
You bastards. That's what this is. So one issue that I did not account for is that since we were cleaning, we never ate. So she was hungry. So I decided to take her to get food as the first thing we did. Then there was something else she wanted to do while we
keep going. I can hear you.
So we did that. And that made me think of something else. Before we knew it, it didn't make sense for us to do the thing that we planned on doing while we were out. All right, cool. Now a little over an hour passed. So I'm like, this is perfect. I texted the twin to see if they were ready, and she told me they need another hour and a half. So now I had already resigned to the idea of not doing the original plan. And I also didn't want to tell Chrissy that we still had so much time left. So we just started doing random shit. Like, I started showing her the physical locations that were tied to certain things in certain stories that I had told her. I showed her the courthouse where I had to go when I found out my registration was suspended by the police officer at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. And showed her how close the police station was. It's literally across the street from the courthouse, like, and not like a highway street, like no, like a residential side street. It's literally across the street. Let me see. One of her godchildren is about to go to CCBC Catonsville, and Chrissy has to take her there next week for something, but Chrissy had never been there. So I went there. So I took her there to see the campus and show her that there happened to be a place near there where my car battery would die at one time while I was on a date that I had told her about, one of the stories I had told her about. So I showed her that area. When we went to that area, it was like, oh, these are some nice houses. So we started looking at houses. That reminded me that she had some confusion about how big my mother's yard is. So my mother always complains about the size of her yard because she wishes that she would have gotten a bigger house instead of having so much yard. But Chrissy had only ever been over to her house like once in the daytime and didn't really pay any attention to the size of the yard when she was there. So this had been an ongoing conversation that we've been having. So we went by there so I could show her that. Just killing time. In this moment, I texted my mother to talk to her, let her know that we were doing that. She was at work. That was a whole thing. Of course, I didn't get word to come to the house until we had wandered a good 20 minutes away from the house. But we get there and the surprise was real. Now, on the way there, I was going back and forth texting with my mother, and eventually she called me. So we're talking. She asked me what we're doing. I told her, I'm like, we killing time. She was like, for what? I said, something for... This was before me and Chrissy had to... Well, it wouldn't matter if it was before or after. Chrissy was still in the car. So I'm like, it's a surprise for Chrissy. She's like, oh, okay. So we talking. We had normal conversations. I mentioned taking Chrissy to the backyard and blah, 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 blah. And she talks about how she thought we were going to do more things outside and blah, 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 blah. We get back to the house. When we pull into the parking spot, my mother's like, oh, y'all made it back? I'm like, yeah. She's like, all right, yeah, let me hold you. Mind you, again, this is after Chrissy has already given me the key that she doesn't even know that she had to what's going on. So I'm like, yeah, that tracks. My mother doesn't just get off the phone that quickly. That's not a thing.
Right.
So, a couple other things. Also, on top of all this, because it rained so much, as Tim alluded to, because it rained like so much during the fucking leading up to the day, the grass grew back much faster than it normally would have. And by the time it was dry enough for me to cut, it would have been a dead giveaway.
Yep.
That the event was going to involve the yard.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we're sitting at like 5 out of 10. That's if I'm just being super objective and matter of fact. But that's not how life works, right? There's always the human element. Divine needs to focus on that a little bit more. A good portion of the people involved in the various parts of planning this had so much real life shit going on. Some good, some bad, but all wasn't important. There were a couple more hiccups that I won't share in public, but they did an absolute amazing job getting this together, and I'm so grateful to each and every
I saw the video.
There were some standouts that just roll with the punches that bring the score back up. Like
them niggas had cupcakes. And one of them was emailed up here.
That was we got cupcakes right now. Like it's cupcakes downstairs, like right now, like currently, like oh my bad. So Marcus, I put him in again, I didn't know at the time. So I unknowingly put him in a terrible position because I was telling him about how the planning was going for Chrissy's thing. And he's just listening to me, and He's having a meltdown because the person that I told him was planning it, he didn't know that person was planning what he knew about. So in his mind, he's like, oh shit, how are both of these things happening at the same time that are being planned by two different people?
Oh shit. Okay. All right.
Right. So, but he played it off perfectly. He was just like, oh damn, well, I ain't gonna invite. And I was like, nigga, I don't know who's invited. Again, at that time, I'm oblivious. I don't know shit. So I'm like, nigga, I don't know who's invited. I was just told to do a couple things. I'm just doing things I was told.
Napalm, shut your cake hole.
So also Dawn, she didn't do anything in particular, but what she did is took the advice that we give people. You can always just shut the fuck up. I'm sitting there telling her about all the planning and everything. She's just sitting there nodding and smiling. Ain't saying a single word. And also, of course, I just told y'all about my mother having this whole conversation back and forth with her, and do nothing to like I said, the only thing that even tipped me off with her was getting out the phone so fast, and that was only because I already knew. If Chrissy never suggested that it would have been an engagement party for us, I would have not even paid no mind to her getting off the phone so quick because I was so focused on making sure Chrissy was still surprised. I wouldn't have even thought of it.
So Discord, I don't hear it, of course, on my end, but I'm sure you're not the first one to say something. Do you have your phone anywhere near your cords? That's what it might sound like.
I don't know. Fuck it, we both. So that all happened. Those things they add 3 points back to it. So I want to say we ended up with an 8 out of 10 as far as planning is concerned. That's not bad. There were a lot of fucking moving parts. There were, like, one of my favorite things about a surprise is when you use the person that you're surprising in the surprise. Like one of my favorite surprises that I've ever done for Chrissy wasn't even a huge thing. Was we were going out to eat, and like her favorite place for us to go is Longhorn. We were going out to eat.
I ain't been there in a minute.
I told her that we were going to
How you been, Napalm?
I had told her we were going to Red Robin, and she was driving.
Yo, you realize the only time I've been to Red Robin was with you.
That's a failure on your part. So I told her we was going to Red Robin, and she. No,
I think me and my wife did go once. We did go once.
That number should be higher. So I told her we were going to Red Robin. She was driving. She drove all the way to Red Robin, but that Red Robin happened to have a Longhorn next to it. That's where we were going the whole time. Perfect. And in this instance, she had to use me to plan it because it was here. There was no way that she could not have used me. That was amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah.
So the party itself was amazing. All the wedding party was there except for like 2 people. All of Chrissy's godchildren were there except for like 1.
Goodness.
Both sets of our parents came. Most of our shared friend group was there. It was amazing. All I've been hearing since the party is how amazing our group of friends is, and I couldn't agree more. I feel like the party was as much for them as it was for us, given all that's going on right now. I think everybody that was involved kind of needed that. So that was a thing. Yeah. All right, let me run through this last one real quick. Fucking yesterday, photo shoot, prom send-off. Time is passing, and quickly.
Yes, it is,
nigga. About this time last year, I did a prom send-off shoot for Dion's oldest 2 daughters. I just did it again yesterday, and not only did it put in perspective all the things that happened in a year, but also how quickly time is moving. This is in pretty much every aspect, like literally. Last year, I was a bit flustered while doing it because I had to make quick transitions from my 50 mil to my 16 mil. And with that came the issue of not really liking to use good shit, Paul.
That's crazy, yo. Yo, that's crazy. That is fucking crazy.
And with that came the issue of me not really, like, oh man, I don't really want to use the 16, but I can't use the 50 for this particular shot, and blah blah this, because they were only 2 prime lenses that I had. I had the kit lens, but I wasn't about to put that shit back on my camera, and so fast forward to yesterday, I got the 24-70 zoom. No more lens changes. No hesitation about which one to use, because I could just quickly do both. Didn't matter. Last year, I was struggling with the lighting in certain pictures because of the way that my flash worked. It took AA batteries and the
Swimmy, you have the R6. The R6, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good low light camera.
Yeah,
right.
But the settings still matter, and the flash.
I mean, true.
The flash was the flash. So certain pictures, it takes AA batteries, and the recharge time wasn't great. On top of that, as the battery started dying, the recharge time increases. And on top of that, AA batteries get hot fast. On top of that, the hotter the flash gets, the larger the refresh time goes. Right. Yesterday, I got a new flash. Much better refresh time. Yeah, also doesn't take AA batteries. It has its own rechargeable battery that's tailored for the flash. So it doesn't have the drawbacks of the AA's. It doesn't affect the recharge time as much. It doesn't heat up as much. I didn't have that issue. It got to a point during the night last year where I would take a picture and I'd be ready to take the next picture and no flash went off. Yesterday, there were times when I held the shutter a little bit too long and it took double pictures, both flashes went off both times. Big difference. Last year, I was a bit unsure about the physical part of the photography aspect of everything. I wasn't comfortable. I had spent a decent amount of time with the girls at that point, but not a bunch. Getting them to be comfortable with the camera was a fight. I felt like I wasn't interested enough to assert anything with them and also with the other people that were in the room.
Right.
That's when it comes, the girls and the guests. Last thing I wanted to do was get into something with somebody and then put Dion in that situation where it's like, yesterday, I knew more of the people who were there. If I didn't know them, I knew about them. My relationship with the girls is so much better and stronger now. I had no problem getting them to take pictures. They let me know when they were starting to get overwhelmed. I shut that shit down. Hey, they're going to be taking a break for like 5-10 minutes. Y'all chill out. Leave them alone. So when it was time for them to get back to the photos again, they ain't give me no problems, no pushback. They was up, ready to come back to the photos.
So how many pictures did you get out of it?
It's like 200 something.
Jeez.
It's like 200 something total. Now that's total. I ain't go through them yet.
Right.
But yeah, it's about 200 total. But I wasn't worried about putting Dion in no position because at this point I know her relationship with most of these people. I know things that they may have or may not have done that they may have been supposed to or not supposed to have done, and they was about this close from getting something happening in the first place. So I was much less reserved about that.
Right.
And this is not going. Somebody came up to me. Oh, can you take a picture with me and one of the girls? No, not right now. They're on a break.
Right.
They're taking a break. Because they both have this thing with taking pictures and attention, and they don't really like that. So it takes a little bit to get them.
You got to recharge.
But because of how our relationship now is, they trust me more. So it's not.
Yo, Ryan said SBJ equals seriously petty jokes.
Oh no! Listen, it's going to happen sometimes. It's going to happen sometimes. There's no way around it. It's just such a day and night situation. Also, like I talked about how I had that issue where everybody's trying to jump in front of the camera.
I hate it, yo.
Yesterday, I had forgot to mention it to Dion. Didn't matter. Before the girls came out, she shut everything down. Hey, listen, I have a professional photographer in here.
Yeah.
He needs to be able to get his
goofy
pictures.
ass iPhone ass.
Do not jump in front of him. Let him get his pictures. He will let you know when it's okay to get in front of. Boom, perfect, perfect. I ain't had to worry about none of that. It was just all over. Now, that's not to say that there was not a hiccup or two, but the hiccup or two had nothing to do with the photography. So that's some other shit that I can't address on here. But yeah, so everything went great. They looked beautiful. I don't know if they're gonna let me, but I'll try to post a picture or two from the situation. Well, Dion already is up and down the timeline already. Oh. But those aren't those aren't
right.
Those are camera phone pictures. So I will see if they will allow me to post a couple of them, because they came out really good. They looked good. The dates looked good. Everything
they took direction pretty good.
Oh yeah, like I said, our relationship is different now, so I don't have those issues with them.
Right.
They have more trust in me now, and they my peoples. So hey, listen, I need you to do this. No problem. Just it's just done.
Right.
No pushback. Like I said, when Dion was like, "Hey, give Chrissy your camera so you can go ahead and go in there and take a picture with them," I went in there. One of them was like, "Yo, I am so over taking pictures." I said, "Okay, hey, y'all, chill out. they done. Give them about 5-10 minutes.
Right.
Leave them alone.
Right.
Let them do what they do." For the most part, people let them alone. So like I said, that one lady, I'm not going to get into her. She's a whole thing. But she came up to me when I was talking to the boys. She came to me when I was talking to the boys, like, "Oh, can I get a picture with the boys?" And I'm like, "No, not right now. She's taking a break." And that was that. But yeah, it was amazing. That's probably things that I forgot, not about the photo shoot, but about these last 2 weeks. Right, it is what it is at this point.
you got the gist.
Yeah, you got the gist. It was very eventful. There's a lot of shit going on. Actually, it's some other shit that happened that I just can't talk about or hear. But of course. That's it.
Yeah, listen. We want to thank all of you once again for joining us for another rousing edition of Black Culture Geeks Podcast.
Yeah.
Do not forget to check out Heard It Through the Grapevine from my sister, his significant other, Chrissy's podcast. Go check that out. Also, there is always music.
Always music.
There is always music. There is music from the past. There is music presently. And there is music in the future. So, for the music that's from the past and present, go check that out.
Run that
on streaming services. Run them numbers up. Run our numbers up. Also, don't forget my man, Super Side Guy and Hendrick. Their Metas and Mutants podcast. Congratulations to Hendrick.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Shout out to him. You know what I'm saying? Also, don't forget, Graydon has been live streaming a lot lately.
Office hours.
So he's doing his office hours thing. So don't forget to check that out as well. Comic books. What we are attempting to do, right, is there should be another Kickstarter sometime in June. It will be for Singularity. That is the IP written by Emmy Award-winning homeboy of mine, Christopher Colburn. Right? Yes, he has an Emmy. Yes.
Yep.
And we pushing it just like that.
Absolutely.
So, so yeah, we're trying to get things in motion for that. You should start seeing some promotion for that. I have a 50-minute interview with him that is in the draft portion of our Majestic Comics YouTube channel. So once that shit goes live, I will be sharing that shit around. You're going to see a lot more advertisements about that shit coming up soon.
Yeah.
And we will have a link for the launch page coming up at some point, hopefully this upcoming week. So for my man SPJ, I am Tombstone the Dead Man. And for the greater multi-world entertainment family, we are out.
Peace.
Bye.